into sinkholes that endanger people's homes and businesses, so we can prevent another tragedy like we had in Westmoreland County back in December. Pennsylvania is home to more abandoned mines than any other state in the entire country. We still have 140,000 acres that need to be fixed. We're resuming work to reduce utility bills for consumers and make sure that rural communities have reliable access to electricity. As a result of the freeze, several ongoing projects in the western part of our Commonwealth, employing dozens of Pennsylvanians, were forced to stop work. These folks can now get back on the job, knowing that I will continue to have their backs. As governor, it is my job to protect Pennsylvania's interests, and I will use every tool at my disposal, from legal action to my direct engagement, to make sure that Pennsylvanians are protected and that the funds Pennsylvanians rely on every day, the funds that Pennsylvanians pay in federal taxes, make their way back to our Commonwealth, and we receive every federal dollar that we are owed. I want to thank you for being here on short notice, and I'm happy to take a couple quick questions on this topic if you have any. Dennis?
Governor, can you clarify? So you're saying you spoke with senior Trump people and they just decided to unfreeze, or was there a court component to this as to, well, they may have recognized they were on the losing side of it?
We directly engaged, I directly engaged with senior Trump administration officials. My legal team, led by Mike Fisher, Jacob Boyer, Jen Selber, directly engaged with the Department of Justice, and those funds are unfrozen at this time.
You said all the funds identified in your lawsuit have been restored. Are there any funds not identified in the lawsuit that Pennsylvania is still not receiving?
Well, we identified the funds that were frozen in our lawsuit, and all of them have been unfrozen.
Things have shifted in the 2 weeks since you filed that, so I don't know if there's been any further withholding of funds beyond that.
No, if there was, we would add it to our lawsuit. Everything that we described, the reason I stated that way is we enumerated what was frozen in our lawsuit. You should have a copy of that, and all of that is unfrozen.
So can you describe the conversations between you and your fellow governors and the president himself at the White House when it came to funding?
Well, I'm not going to get into the specifics of any conversations. I think you all have known me long enough to know that when you're in the room, when you're directly engaging that way, that those conversations need to remain private. I can tell you that I was very direct with them. They were very responsive to me, and as a result, Pennsylvania now has what is duly owed to us. Okay?
What's your level of concern regarding the Trump administration? I got a couple of emails today from federal employees who live in Pennsylvania that were given that note about the defend what he did in the last 5 years.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into that here, Dennis. I'm really just focused on our funding. Again, we're going to continue to make sure we protect Pennsylvania's interest in what is owed and obligated to this Commonwealth legally. Okay? Jill, last question.
What has it been like working with the Attorney General Sunday on this issue? And did you want to step into the administration?
We work well together. And look, as I said at the Attorney General's swearing in, I wish him well. We're going to continue to work with him. Understanding that seeking and receiving delegation is something the Office of General Counsel does with the Office of Attorney General every day. When I was Attorney General, we delegated many matters to the Wolf administration. It's part of the normal course of business.
While we have you, in light of the shooting that happened on Saturday, are you able to speak to the state of security in our medical facilities here?
Well, let me just say this generally. Obviously, I was at York Memorial, UPMC Memorial in York on Saturday. It was so tragic. We saw the worst of humanity with the shooter's conduct, but we also saw the best of humanity, the way the healthcare workers responded, the way law enforcement responded to try and keep themselves safe. And in the process, I know they saved lives of others who were at risk. My heart breaks for Officer Duarte's family. I spent a considerable amount of time with his mother and his stepfather. We had the opportunity to talk a lot about the young officer and how much he loved his community. He moved to this community in West York Borough to serve that area. He really was the best of us, someone who quite literally ran toward danger while others understandably ran away. My heart just breaks for him. I visited with the wounded officers and their families as well, and I continue to pray for them and wish them a full and speedy recovery. And I've engaged directly with Leslie Davis and the folks at UPMC, the hospital that was affected, to make sure they understand that if they have any particular needs for security for their personnel, that they're to let us know. They've not asked for anything at this time. Understand that multiple departments responded to Memorial to join UPMC police who are already engaging with the shooters. So UPMC had a police force already in the hospital doing their best to save lives, and I commend them for their work. Okay, thank you all very, very much.
All right, that was Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. What you're looking at right now on your screen is a live look over Philadelphia this hour. A lot of different topics discussed, but Shapiro saying that President Trump's administration has now freed up billions in federal aid that the Democrat had accused it of withholding illegally and unconstitutionally. Shapiro said there that more than $2 billion that his administration had identified as either frozen or held up by an unspecified review was now accessible to state agencies. Shapiro sued in federal court over the aid, and that was back on February 13th after federal courts repeatedly rejected the Trump administration's sweeping pause on federal funding and questioned whether the Trump administration was ignoring court orders. Shapiro also saying that he pressed his case in conversations with senior Trump administration officials while he was in Washington, D.C. over the weekend. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Philadelphia, which represents the federal agencies named in the lawsuit, have declined to comment. But again, we just heard those comments there from Governor.
All right. So funds are released to Pennsylvania, I guess. I've opened up the X Spaces, so if you would like to do a call-in, please do. It's on my larger X channel, so you can join there. Please, you can watch the live stream on Rumble, also on YouTube. YouTube has the dashboard with the market telemetry. I'm going to go over the market really quick after this. And you can watch the live stream on either version, the large screen or the dashboard version on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. So the ones that just joined on YouTube, thank you for joining. This is Dr. Paul Cottrell. We are doing a live stream on February 25th. There's going to be another premiere release on the different channels. And please help support my work by donating on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. You can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or Buy Me a Coffee, or you can be a paid member to my Patreon channel. All my videos that I do are for free. I don't put them behind paywalls, but people do help support my work by donating and being a paid member to my Patreon channel. Thank you very much for the ones that have done that. I greatly appreciate your continued support, and also get the great products that I have on my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Let me talk about one product that I recommend you getting. I have structural nano silver soaps. I have 2 of them in the new packaging. I have it in peppermint and also in lavender. Very high quality soaps made from structural nano silver. It's healthy for you. Use it every day. It's way better than the garbage that you're getting at the grocery store, that has all these fancy chemicals in it. So please go to my store, get a couple bars of this very high quality structural nano silver. Again, you can get it in lavender or in peppermint in the new packaging. And in the older packaging, you can get it in lemongrass or charcoal tea tree. All right, so get a couple bars for your household. Help support my work. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off. Get a few products from my store, and you stack it in a certain way, and that's your health routine. It's a great way to get healthy, and we'll talk about how to stack these things. But use the structural nanosilver soaps every day. Very high quality. Get a few bars for your household. Help support my work and help support your health. All right, so let's go back to Live Now before we pivot maybe to Al Jazeera.
My name is Josh Breslow, and I'm here to bring you all of your top stories, live events, and breaking news from across the country and across the world. I do want to take you right now out to this live image, one of many that we do have coming in from Rome. As we know that Pope Francis does remain hospitalized, I do want to go over just some of the latest information that we do have here, as the Vatican has been releasing constant updates on the Pope's condition. So here is the latest. This is the statement from the Vatican here. They say the Holy Father's clinical condition, despite its severity, has shown a slight improvement, adding that Monday evening, quote, he called the parish priest of Gaza to express his paternal closeness. The Vatican saying the Pope rested well the whole night and thanks the entire people of God who in these days have gathered to pray for his health. Pope Francis battling pneumonia in both lungs. Now, the Argentine Pope, who had part of one lung removed when he was younger, about 21 years old, has been hospitalized since back on February 14th, so 11 days ago, with doctors describing his condition as touch and go. Again, that is a live look outside of the hospital where Pope Francis is being treated, still listed in critical condition, but showing some signs of improvement. We'll make sure to keep you updated on all of that here as it does.
All right, I'm going to do a market update now. Right now, the market in the United States hasn't opened up yet, but you have the currency market that's trading. So I'm going to go over that right now. The Euro USD is at 1.04. The oil futures market's at $70.29 a barrel, and the USD Japanese yen is trading at 49.35. Remember what I said, when the Japanese yen starts to strengthen, that is usually a sign that there's some sort of systemic stress starting to build up in the international market. We're seeing that. We also saw a major sell-off in Bitcoin. It broke 90,000 last night. I don't know where it's at right now. I'll have to take a look at it. And let's take a look at it right now. Let's see. All right, Bitcoin's at 89,000 at the moment. And so there's a major sell-off going on in Bitcoin. So that's suppressing long ETFs that are tied to Bitcoin. So where that goes, I don't know. I'm not really sure. But there's definitely a sell-off in Bitcoin. It's tied to this 1.4, I think, billion dollars that was stolen by Bybit exchange, through the Bybit exchange. And so there's investors that are leaving. There's lots of outflows out of ETFs. So they're suppressing the Bitcoin market. Strategy, which used to be called, I think it was called MicroStrategy, but they renamed it, which is a whale buying Bitcoin, has indicated that they bought more Bitcoin last week. What they do with this sell-off, who knows? Because the way they make this strategy is that they buy assuming that it's going to appreciate, and they're going to have to mark to market on their balance sheet. So as it's depreciating, it may cause some sort of problem on their balance sheet. Now, we've been told that Tesla also bought about $1.5 billion of Bitcoin. I'm not sure if that actually went through, but I believe it did. So as Bitcoin starts to sell off, it's going to put pressure on the balance sheet when it's marked to market, even for Tesla. So this was something that happened years ago with tech stocks, where they were starting to buy assets, financial assets, to help to boost up their position, their economic viability. All right, there were these tech companies who were taking cash. They would buy stocks in the market, and so once the stock market was going up, when the stock market was going up, they would mark to market, and then they would have sometimes the treasury of that company would sell and then they would have a profit. If they didn't sell, they would just mark to market, and it just showed that their assets were appreciating. All right, and that helped their stock go up, that tech company stock to go up. But when the market started to go down, all these tech stocks were hit by mark to market. So something very similar is starting to have to emerge with this Bitcoin issue. So, but is this my take on the Bitcoin issue, and I'm not an expert on Bitcoin. I never said I was, but I'm just saying that there are institutional investors now getting involved with these ETFs. All right. My take on this, from just experience in the financial markets, is that there's this sell-off that's taking place, and then there's going to be regulatory framework that's built up through the Trump administration, and people that are very long Bitcoin are going to be eating up at these lower prices. And then once the regulatory framework is adopted, then Bitcoin is going to shoot past the 100,000 mark. Now the question is are we going to see 70,000 on Bitcoin before we see 100,000? It's very possible. Now, the bigger question is how and why and who did the theft from Bybit of the $1.4 billion worth of coins? How did that happen? Who did it? You know, is this some sort of espionage thing that's going on with China? Is this did someone do this to crash the market to be able to buy more coin at a lower price before the regulatory framework is passed? That might be. Who knows? Who knows? But these whales are signaling that they're buying. So I don't know. You know, Bitcoin is an extremely volatile asset class, and it's not real. That's the problem. It's not like oil where you pump oil out of the ground and you actually physically see a oil and you can use it for energy or to make things, right? Petrochemical and all this stuff, right? Well, Bitcoin is a digital asset, but you can't make a car. You can't convert it into energy. It's literally a waste product of doing calculations in a computer using energy. The waste product of that is a Bitcoin. Now, there is this human desire to add, to have some sort of value to that, but there's no real intrinsic value. There's zero intrinsic value of Bitcoin. Zero. If anyone says there is, they don't know what they're talking about. There's no intrinsic value of Bitcoin. It's literally a waste product of calculating digits, calculating, mathematical formulas using energy. The waste product is the actual Bitcoin. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't make money or lose money, but to say that it has intrinsic value, it doesn't. You can't make anything with it. It's so hard to even transact with it. Yeah, some people make some apps, but if the vendors aren't willing to use it, then it doesn't mean anything. You can print a lot of monopoly money, and go to McDonald's and ask for a Big Mac, but it doesn't mean that McDonald's is going to accept your monopoly money. It's the same concept. So it's a very volatile asset. Now, what is interesting with Bitcoin is it's using the blockchain. Blockchain is a technology that can be used for many different things. It could help revolutionize accounting. It could help to revolutionize, transacting with a digital currency. But that digital currency doesn't have to be Bitcoin. It could be anything. And why would the Federal Reserve just give up just abrogate their authority to monetary policy, or the Treasury abrogate authority for monetary policy and affecting the money supply? Why would they give that to some sort of crypto market? They wouldn't. A war would happen before that would happen. So the technology makes sense, but the actual value, this perceived intrinsic value of Bitcoin is just garbage. And you're seeing it right now. If there is a little bit of a problem in the news about safety of these exchanges in terms of, preventing hacking or ability to convert to dollars or whatever, if there's a problem with the exchanges, boom, Bitcoin starts selling off fast. So there's really, truly no confidence in it. And people are, it's speculative. It's a speculative, commodity, virtual commodity. That's how it's played. All right. But it's very possible we see Bitcoin at 70 before we see Bitcoin at 100,000 again. But there's a regulatory framework that's coming out of the Trump administration that should be Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies positive. And I think this is the reason why that these whales are taking the opportunity to soak up, some more coin before the regulatory framework gets passed. So it's an opportunity, but it's going to be a wild ride. But I do think that the Trump administration is pro-Bitcoin. I'm surprised the sell-off is so vicious on Bitcoin. I thought it would be a sell-off and then, maybe two days and then mean revert. It doesn't look like it's mean reverting. But it's a very volatile asset class. And who knows? It could have been done on purpose. The Bybit hack could have been done on purpose to drive the price down for people to buy it cheaper instead of above $100,000 before the regulatory framework. Who knows? We don't know. But there were nefarious actors in finance for sure. So that's my take on Bitcoin and what's going on. All right. Let's go to Fox News and play. This is Musk says Fed workers will get another chance to report productivity.
Elon Musk is giving some federal workers the boot and others a second chance to respond to his email. Yeah, I just ad-libbed that. As he continues asking for details of what they accomplished over the last week.
Madeline Rivera joins us live from Washington with the latest. Good morning, Matt.
Hey, Maddie. Hi, guys. Good morning. Yeah, there's a lot of confusion regarding this directive. Elon Musk says while there is a second chance to respond, failure to answer again will result in termination this time. But the Office of Personnel Management says agencies will be the ones to review responses and evaluate non-responses. They look into whether employees were on excused leave yesterday or whether they had access to their email over the weekend. The OPM also says agency heads can exclude some workers from this expectation at their discretion, given that they provide reasons for exclusions. And finally, the OPM says it is up to the agency's leadership to determine what actions are taken. Some agencies, like the FBI and the Department of Defense, for instance, have told employees not to respond to the OPM email, saying they'll be doing their own reviews. But others, like the Transportation Secretary, saying that their department is going to be following this directive from Musk. But President Trump says the different orders don't necessarily mean a division between the Trump administration and Musk, and he's defending Musk's order. Listen here.
So what they're doing is they're trying to find out who's working for the government. Are we paying other people that aren't working? And, where's all that? Where's the money going? There was a lot of genius in sending it. We're trying to find out if people are working. And so we're sending a letter to people. Please tell us what you did last week. If people don't respond, it's very possible that there is no such person or they're not working.
There appears to be no deadline set for a second response. We'll see if we get more clarity later today. Lawrence G. Ainsley.
See, that last word, clarity.
Yeah.
There hasn't been a lot of that. Madeline, so for the federal employees who are watching right now, what are they supposed to do?
We'll see later on today if we get more answers from the White House, from the president. Look, if you listen to the OPM email, what they'll say is that they're not taking a one-size-fits-all approach to this. The administration says they'll take into account the differences among the different agencies, they'll work with the different agencies, and they're taking into things like confidentiality reasons, for example, which President Trump says was the reason, for example, that the FBI and the DOD, why they might not be responding to this email right now. So they'll take those factors into account. The White House is downplaying the notion that there is a division between the OPM and Musk here. They say at the end of the day, the administration is working together to create more efficiency among federal workers. But again, like you said, Steve, there is no doubt that there are a lot of federal workers who are confused by this, and they are hoping to get more answers later on today.
All right, Madeline. Thank you very much.
Well, Elon posted, he said the email request was utterly trivial, as the standard for passing the test was to type some words and press send. Yet so many failed even that inane test, urged on in some cases by their managers. Have you ever witnessed such incompetence and contempt for how your taxes are being spent? Makes old Twitter look good. Didn't think that was possible. The problem is the federal workers are getting these mixed messages, and it seems to be a turf war by some of the agency leaders, the new agency leaders, and Elon Musk. Now, Donald Trump said yesterday, look, all we're trying to do is make sure these people are actually working, that there are actual people, like the Social Security sending out checks to people that are 140 years old. Well, that doesn't exist. So they're just making sure that these positions are filled by live bodies. And so we're not sending money to people, paychecks to people who don't exist. But the problem is you have Office of Personnel Management. They're saying it's voluntary. You won't be fired if you don't respond. You have Kash Patel with the FBI saying pause responses. We're in charge of employee reviews. And then you have Kristi Noem with Department of Homeland Security saying don't respond. So what are you supposed to do?
Right, exactly. So who's running the show?
Well, the president gave them some cover yesterday as well. Remember, a lot of these same agencies, whether you're talking about the Defense Department as well as Transportation as well, have invited DOGE into their department. Right. So they're not anti-DOGE. What they're saying is the information that's going out, there's some security measures that need to put in place for that. So they want to coordinate the response to this.
So there's a lot of people who are going to be let go in a lot of different agencies. I know the Transportation has let some people go now. The VA, Doug Collins, has dismissed more than 1,400 employees with non-mission critical positions. Others in Transportation were let go who did not have safety implications day to day. And that's what's happening too, just about everywhere. If you're a probationary, they're looking to let you go. And I think the overarching headline is we have to cut the federal workload. It's 2.7 million. It's got to get less. The question is now, that was a speech the president gave at CPAC. The president, Elon Musk, saw and said, I hear you, Mr. President. I put on this email. And the president said yesterday, I like the idea of an email. But I just think next time, very easy. A lot of these people are Elon Musk's personal friends. Hey, I'm going to send out an email. And it's going to go to all the divisions. Are you okay with this? Right. Because Kash Patel was only on the job 2 days. He can't have FBI agents who maybe miscommunicated being accessed. Same with Tulsi Gabbard. She's like, I really can't do this. Right. So I'm going to back out. It doesn't mean they're fighting. Just means they just need a little bit more of an effort to coordinate. Well, and that's key. I think a lot of it with the State Department and the FBI and the national security apparatus is they don't want their boss. They don't want somebody at a laptop somewhere putting out, okay, these are the 5 classified things I did last week. Because there was an email that went out yesterday from HSS, Health and Human Services, an email to the staff and said, if you reply, assume that what you write will be read by malign foreign actors, so tailor your responses accordingly. What's curious, though, I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but there was hearing yesterday regarding DOGE access to Treasury records. Mm-hmm. And the government attorney representing the White House was asked by the judge, so who exactly is running DOGE? Who is the administrator? And the attorney for the federal government said, I don't exactly know. Mm-hmm. I don't have that answer. So it's kind of like, what is the flow chart for the person who's running DOGE? Elon Musk has been described as an advisor to the president.
Well, I think it's a flat organization. This is not and I think Washington is so used to this org chart with this person. Essentially, you have all these people that are across agency reporting back to Elon Musk, who then goes back to the president and he makes the final decision on it. I just want them to be able to do their job. It looks like they're doing a great job. There's some bumps in the road. The last thing I would say to this, because I've been getting a lot of emails from federal employees. I understand why some of you guys are feeling the heat and you've been lumped into the basket of all the other federal employees that Americans have distrust for. We're not talking about you. We understand that there are career people that just want to do their job, that love their country. But you have to understand, it is a bipartisan thing. When you look at the latest polling, independents, Democrats, as well as Republicans, all feel like there's some inefficiency in our government. And I apologize that you guys are being lumped in. You want to do your job, but something has to give here. Just like in the private sector.
Argentina's doing it. And that's what they did. And they put, I mean, they had 110% inflation. It was a joke. So this guy came in. That's the leader who gave the chainsaw. So he's trying to do the same thing. And I just think the more you realize, Musk's agency is the only way to do it. Because if you do it through normal committee meetings and oversight, it ends up being a report that nobody does. Remember the Erskine Bowles, the Bowles report.
Yeah.
They looked at government's inefficiency for 18 months. They Simpson Bowles. Right. And they looked at it. It was pretty comprehensive. Yeah. You know what Barack Obama looked at it and goes, this will never pass. He put it on the back burner. Right. These guys got paid for 18 months. So he's just saying, I need somebody on the outside, doesn't need to be elected, to go in and make some tough decisions.
I think all Elon wants to do is take Brian Kilmeade. Brian would send an email that would say, I did Fox and Friends on Monday, and I did radio on Monday. On Tuesday, I did Fox and Friends. I did radio. Wednesday. Yeah, just 1 week of what you did just to make sure you're a live body and you're a real person. I understand what you're saying. You do feel for the federal workers that are getting lumped in and are worried about losing their jobs. But I think the purpose of this is not necessarily, if you respond to the email, it sounds like you have a good chance of surviving.
That's right.
The workplace.
Yeah, but then again, if your advisor says don't do it, that's so complicated.
Yeah.
Ultimately, this is going to be tied up in courts for a while. Yeah. And in fact, some of the people who brought lawsuits have prevailed, where I saw yesterday a group of employees, probationary employees who were fired last week, got a 45-day stay as they take a look at it. Ultimately, Democrats and others say that it's unconstitutional. You need the power of Congress to close agencies and things like that. But I'll tell you, I'm over the last 5 days, I've been down in Texas, and I talked to a lot of people down there who are not part of the federal government. Right. But they've either got a family member or an in-law or a friend, or they know a guy who got that letter.
But the majority of the country supports the cuttings.
No, I get that instantly. But if you got the letter, you were just very, very concerned, and you're worried about the future. Who knows whether or not those people will be like,
well, the Consumer Bureau, they was put out there by Elizabeth Warren. Yeah. The whole division was cut. That's been controversy when Trump was in the first time. Yeah, from the very beginning. So Elizabeth Warren is not happy with that, and she's having all these meetings about all the vitriol is flying about what how the Musk people don't know what they're doing. They're just cutting out. They're just trying to get tax cuts for billionaires. Brent Cooper was on, I think, you.
Yes.
Yesterday.
So she has tons of, more than 1 million followers, 1.2 million on Instagram, on YouTube, 1.4. When she had a show, her podcast, 8 million, 9 million people would listen to it. So she was on with us. She's a Gen Zer. She's young. She's in her early 20s, and she's become very successful. She was a COVID student in college. When she graduated, didn't know what she was going to do. Started working for PragerU, and then her career just built because so many people like what she's saying. She's a conservative. She said she voted for Trump, and she said this is why more young people voted for Trump than Kamala.
I think we were just ready for something new, especially after Biden, because obviously the system wasn't working. Mm-hmm. And so in looking at my generation, I think that they realized, like, let's burn it down. Basically, let's try something new. We're willing to walk away from what we've known, what we've been told is empathetic and inclusive and correct, and what young people should believe. And we were willing to try something new. MAGA is, the raging against the machine, and young people are rebellious, and they're willing to try something new.
Well, I can't blame her generation or my generation. You got folks that can't afford a house, but we're sending money to foreign governments and all. I mean, it just doesn't feel well. And I think that the Democrats, the argument that they make is process. They're not targeting the issue of waste, trying to be. Yeah, Jasmine Crockett, she went on Charlamagne's The Breakfast Club and he asked her, do you think that waste and fraud is a big issue? And she goes, not at all. That is not a mainstream point of view, even for people in her party. So you can stand with the workers that are for our federal government and say, look, I want a fair process for you. But you have to understand, most Americans want cuts to happen. Right. And if you keep being on the other side, you're going to find yourself We're almost to the midterms already. That started the moment Donald Trump was elected. If you run on that, you're going to lose again.
Yeah. So I think we're going to see a lot of it splayed out for the public today with, and Brian was mentioning how they're going to have a forum today, Senator Warren, with the Consumer Financial Protection Board. Keep in mind, it was Elon Musk who said, what was it? Whatever that acronym is, CFPB, RIP. That was a week or two ago. He obviously wants to get rid of it. Interestingly enough, and this would be great to see, Elizabeth Warren has invited Elon Musk. Okay, we're going to have this forum. You come on here and explain how people are going to be protected from unscrupulous lenders if this goes away. So it would be great to see that happen.
71% of students ages 18 to 25 support DOGE, and 62% found a strong majority of all Americans support DOGE efforts to reduce waste fraud.
Right. People like the idea of cutting waste. You just don't like when it gets to their backyard. That's right. They want to cut programs, social programs. They don't want to cut their social programs. That's why an outsider is so necessary to come in.
All righty. So let's plug some products here. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Help support my work by purchasing the great products that I offer on my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. I have peppermint, lavender, and tea tree, and citrus. These are deodorants for males or females, but it's a dual purpose product. It'll also help to detoxify your body. So you're using it as a deodorant, but an everyday detox. It's made from essential oils from the Himalayas, extremely high quality ingredients. Aluminum free, baking soda free. Use this every day to help to detoxify your body and to use it as a deodorant for males and females. Please go to my store, get the citrus or the peppermint, lavender, and tea tree. Help support my work. Also help support Rainbow Herbals. It's through Rainbow Herbals and that produced this product. We were in collaboration to develop this great deodorant bar. And I also have this in some of my anti-aging boxes if you would like to take a look at those. But use discount 5, get $5 off, get a couple bars for your household, help support my work, help support the manufacturing for Rainbow Herbals. It's made in the United States. The ingredients are from the Himalayas, extremely high quality ingredients. Please help support our work and help support your health. Now, I want to talk about probiotics. Probiotics are really important to take every day. I take the powdered probiotic because it's just easier for me to take it during my lunch because of all the different powders that I take. There's a small scooper in here. He takes 1 small scoop and mix it with soft foods like hummus or yogurt or applesauce. Some people just mix it with filtered water. Others create a smoothie. It's up to you. Or you can take the veggie cap version. But either one, very high quality, and it will help to improve your gut biome. A good gut biome is going to improve your metabolism. It's going to allow you to properly absorb your nutrients. It's going to improve your immune system, bring down inflammation, increase and improve the communication between your gut and your liver, because your liver is a major detox organ. And so that's really important. And not only that, your mental acuity will increase. You'll have less irritability. You'll sleep better. And with a good gut biome, you're reducing the chances of Alzheimer's and early onset of dementia. Because new research is suggesting that a poor gut biome is correlated to early onset of dementia and Alzheimer's. So that's cutting edge research. And as more research comes out, we'll understand more of the mechanism behind that. But the bottom line is you need a good gut biome. And when you improve your gut biome, you're also going to notice that your hair, your skin, and your nails are improved. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the very high quality powdered probiotic that I have, or the very high quality veggie cap version that I have. Go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5, you get $5 off. All right. So please help support my work to help support your health. It's a win-win situation. And that way, In 2025, you can be healthy. Okay. With that, let's pivot over to, I'm not sure what Al Jazeera is talking about at the moment. Let's go to Bloomberg right now.
Let's go to the industry crutch here. This is a final question to Mr. Ritholtz. We'll have him in here. I think it's on an every other day basis as he flogs this book as well. There is always a recession coming.
Sure.
That's the drug of the media business, isn't it?
You know, there was a Wall Street Journal article. By the way, I single out a lot of different media outlets, and I always tell people, don't read mastheads, read your favorite writers, because you can go anywhere and pick the worst person or the best person, not necessarily representative. And so the Wall Street Journal did a survey of economists, and 80% chance of a recession in 4 years. And if you just look at that, it makes you a little nervous until you stop and think, well, how many recessions have we had over the past 100 years? It was around 21. That's a recession every 4.85 years. Telling me there's an 80% chance of a recession in 4 years is telling me something that is mathematically accurate and completely meaningless. There's always an 80% chance of recession over the next 4 years. It's a chance it'll be cold in the winter and warm in the summer. Thanks, but how do I act on that as an investor? And the answer is, you ignore it.
Barry, thank you. And this will be a lot of fun into the spring. How not to invest, and the operative word there on YouTube is not, N-O-T. I can't say enough about the oddity of this book and the immediate value by saying this is what not to do in investment. Barry Ritholtz, look for the movie Memorial Day 2026. With our news in New York City, Michael Barr.
Thank you very much, Tom, Paul, Lisa. A midnight deadline has come and gone for federal workers to respond to a threatening email from you.
So someone typed in the chat here about the different supplements that I have that are powders. So I have lignans that are powder. I have probiotics that are powder. I have the collagen that's powdered. Also the Boomer Boost, which has a lot of different ingredients and 68 nutrients. This is a powder. Also, I have the gladiator barley, the gladiator barley, and the heirloom barley, which is high density protein, both in powder form. So I have quite a few things that are powder form, and then also in capsule, in capsules. I also have liquids too. I have C60 liquid, and I also have zeolite in liquid, which helps to detoxify your body. So I have liquids, powders, capsules. I have a variety of different ways for you to make your own personal stack. Okay.
General Assembly that calls out Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine exactly 3 years ago. The Food and Drug Administration is investigating the possible link between frozen supplemental shakes and a deadly years-long listeria outbreak. The now recalled shakes under the brands Lions Ready Care and Cisco Imperial are typically sold to hospitals and nursing homes. That's where nearly all the cases have been reported. Wow. At least 12 people have died from illnesses associated with the outbreak. Global news 24 hours a day and whenever you want it. With the Bloomberg News Now, I'm Michael Barr. This
is the problem with these big box supplement providers is that their quality is usually down. The quality that I have is extremely. I don't put anything on my store that's subpar quality. It's all high end quality. All right, but not just that. I'm telling you how to stack it to help with your own health. All right, so. Like for example, let me give you an example. Let's talk about the collagen really quick before we transition to maybe Cash Jordan or the Pope. I'm not sure which. Collagen. This is a powder. All right. As a big scooper, this is a month's supply. It has a pretty impressive amino acid profile that you can take a look at even closer on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. But this is a dual purpose, all right? This can help with your skin, your hair, and your nails. You take it every day. You take it with soft foods. This is how I take it. I take it with like hummus or with yogurt. Some people create a shake or a smoothie. Some people just drink it with filtered water or even with milk. Now, taking collagen every day will help with your skin, your hair, and your nails. If you take it with vitamin C and drink it with filtered water throughout the day, filtered water, like 64 ounces of filtered water throughout the day, what will happen is that the vitamin C and the collagen will cross-link and improve your dermal layer. So your skin's going to improve. All right. And you're going to see that improvement in less than a month. In addition, collagen helps with your joints and your bones, your ligaments, your tendons. So by doing some resistance training, you're going to actually help with bone density and bone health, your ligaments, tendons, your cartilage. So you're improving your joints. So this is a dual purpose product and it's a powder. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get this very high quality, let me repeat that, very high quality collagen. Now there's a lot of collagen out there that's cheaper, but it's not the high quality collagen. Like I said, everything on my store is high quality, all right? But because it's high quality, it costs more. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get this collagen. Now you can get, if you're concerned with skin health, you can get the anti-aging skin health boxes that I have. I have a beginners and an advanced that has the collagen in it. Take a look at that. I also have, other ways for you to save money, and that is just to use the discount 5. Use discount 5 on any order and you get $5 off. But if you buy an anti-aging box or a longevity box on my store, it has a built-in discount and you can apply the discount 5 on top of that. So I try to provide the highest quality ingredients and supplements for my audience and tell them how to stack it to improve their health. All right. So please listen. This is what I do. And obviously it's working. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get this very high quality collagen. But it's a holistic approach, right? It's drinking filtered water. It's also, doing weight training, right? And, cross-linking with vitamin C, drinking that filtered water, that 64 ounces of filtered water throughout the day. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. All right. Let me go back to Bloomberg. They're talking about the Federal Reserve.
For the second half of the year,
Okay, so we get to Labor Day and the world's falling apart. This is really important with your heritage. Do you have a belief that Washington, and particularly the administration, will adapt and adjust to a sub 2% statistic somewhere where the Red Sox decide if it's playoff baseball?
Our clients are asking us these exact same questions. We think that the administration really does not believe that their policies are going to weigh on growth. So we think that Trump, if we think about what he really campaigned on, it was really two major issues. And that is to be hard on trade, and is to be hard on the border. Both of these are going to weigh on growth. We think that President Trump is going to push very hard on them. And if our forecasts come true and growth does weaken, then perhaps at that point, the administration could pull back. But we think that they're certainly going to deliver first and maybe pull back later.
So as a macro strategy for the Americas, what do you tell your clients? Where to allocate capital these days, given that background?
This is a conversation we have every single day. And to us, what we think is one of the more attractive investments for clients right now is to own long-term bonds in the United States. And the reason I say that is because, very interestingly, something that we've been writing about quite a lot is this theme that's emerging where we think that we're now seeing a more bond-vigilant administration, which is now warding off the bond vigilantes. And that's really evidenced over the last few weeks by Treasury Secretary Bessent, who's basically telling you he's in no rush to increase supply in the United States. And this is opening a window of opportunity, we think, to invest in long-term bonds in the United States.
Cut to the chase. You loading the boat in the 10-year right now?
We like the 10-year, but we like it even better in inflation-protected form. Especially before, we're very worried about inflation, so we like TIPS.
Yeah, Paul and I don't care. The reason we had you here is Alex Steele said, can you find someone who can figure out hotel rooms in Paris? You run BNP Paribas. How do we get a hotel room somewhere in the vicinity of, the first arrondissement in Paris? It's impossible.
For us, from a macro perspective, what we're certainly going to see this year with a very strong dollar, which is what we're forecasting, is more tourism from the United States towards the rest of the world. That, all else equal, unfortunately for you, Tom, is probably going to be putting upward prices on a lot of hotel rooms.
It's outrageous. I mean, I was there a couple of months ago. Long story short, I have an offspring there. And it was, I was literally foaming over what has doubled in price. I mean, it's a boom of cut. Macron's with Trump. Me and an Airbnb.
Yes,
Figure that one out.
Yeah.
Macron and Trump are sitting there. Does anybody have a clue the boom economy in Paris?
When we speak to clients, what clients are really concerned about right now are really, I think largely, as you say, what's going to happen with inflation. And this is what you're feeling every single day. Inflation affects all of us.
Right.
And that's why we've been quite concerned. What we're worried about is that inflation expectations today are less stable than they've been at any point over the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Exactly as you're saying. You can feel it everywhere. And with inflation expectations less anchored than they used to be, what we think is going to happen is that as big tariffs occur, this is likely going to result in more second-round impacts on inflation.
In critical condition.
Higher, which is why we think the Fed's going to be more hawkish.
That's how you get out of NYU, is you start talking second order, second round. That's how you push the process. Kelvin, thank you so much. Kelvin C. with us with BNP Paribas. Brilliant. Are you based in New York?
I am now, yeah.
You are now? Okay. Yeah, he was on the Air France shuttle and that. Okay. Kelvin, thank you so much.
All right, I'm going to pivot over to the Pope's health update. This is from News Nation.
Critical condition this morning, but the Vatican says there are signs of improvement. The 88-year-old pontiff continues to battle pneumonia, has been in the Rome hospital for 11 days at this point, but the Vatican says he has resumed some of his work, including a call to a war-torn parish in Gaza. Supporters gathered at St. Peter's Square for a prayer vigil, sending messages of support in his recovery. Joining me now, I have Father Rocky Hoffman, Executive Director and CEO of Relevant Radio. Father, good morning to you. Thanks for being on with me.
Good morning, Marky, and thank you for covering the story.
Yeah, I'm just curious, what are you hearing from your listeners and Catholics around the country? How's this impacting them, and what are they feeling in this moment?
Well, it's top of mind right now because the Holy Father is the leader of the Catholic Church. He's highly visible. We know he's old. We know he's ailing, so everybody's praying. I was very happy last night to see that the number 2 in charge in the Vatican, Cardinal Parolin, led an evening rosary in St. Peter's Square. And even though it was cold and rainy, about 4,000 people showed up. And every night on Relevant Radio, we do a rosary for the Pope and the family rosary across America. Of course, that media, you can get a lot more than 4,000 people. We get probably 100,000 people. But it's the number 1 story right now in the Catholic world.
Yeah. I mean, he's the leader of an entire religion. And so many people look to you, Father, for guidance and faith and words of wisdom. Do you feel unsettled in this moment of uncertainty? How does this impact yourself?
Not so much now, because I've been through these things before with my own parents and my grandparents, and it's part of life. And as Catholics, we know that Jesus Christ is God. He died for us. And we know there's a limited time on earth. We want to spend it well. And our main concern right now is the Holy Father has the spiritual accompaniment he needs. And we're all praying for his complete and speedy recovery. And he's tough. He's dedicated. He's got the finest doctors in the world. But we know at that age and his condition, it could tip in either way. But I think he's at peace. And he's giving us a marvelous example of persevering in his vocation until the end. He's not just going to sail away easily. He's working whenever he can. So it's a marvelous example.
Yeah, a fighter with a solid support system around him right now. Hey, what long-term issues might the Pope's health situation have on just the global Catholic community, and how will Pope Francis carry out his responsibilities in the coming months?
Well, let's say he survives this situation. then it'll be up to him to determine, does he have the strength to carry on? If he does carry on, he's very good at delegating. But if he doesn't carry on, he might do what Pope Benedict XV, 16th did before. He will resign, and then they'll elect another, and we'll see where it goes, right? So long term, I think his impact on the church should probably be remembered as the Pope of Mercy. And he was always for the underdog. He doesn't like ostentation. And in that way, he imitates Jesus Christ. He always kind of reached out for the vulnerable and the marginalized and such.
Yeah, he's obviously still with us, but quite a legacy he has already left behind. What measures do you think the Vatican is taking right now to ensure the church is still properly run? I mean, kind of take us behind the scenes of what those preparations and conversations really sound like at this hour.
Well, it's fascinating because the church is unique in terms of government structure, and it's been around for 2,000 years, and we've learned a lot over the years. So everything's in place in case of the incapacity of the Holy Father, or in case he passes away. Then things pass to what's known as the papal Cardinal Chamberlain. That's Cardinal Farrell. He was from Dallas. He's 77 years old, and he's the temporary administrator, and he's in charge of things until the funeral takes place. There'll be a wake. The funeral needs to take place within the week, and then within 21 days after the passing of the Holy Father, another cardinal, and this guy's 91 years old, his name is Cardinal Giovanni Battista Re, which is a great Italian name, but we call him Johnny Ray, and he will be in charge of the conclave, convoking all the cardinals around the world to elect the next Holy Father. And we've been through this before, at least in my lifetime, and it's an amazing thing because it's a unique process, and it's a paper ballot, which is fascinating.
Wow. I just finished the Conclave movie. I don't know if you've gotten a chance to see it, but the timing of its release is just pretty fascinating. But hopefully he rebounds and
Yes.
he's all right. Father Rocky Hoffman, thank you for your time this morning and your expertise. It's greatly appreciated, sir.
Thank you, Mark.
Even though the Pope is showing some signs of improvement, usually when these patients are starting to die for whatever reason, and especially when they're older, the average curve over time is going down, all right? But if you look at that curve in detail, it's usually oscillating, but it oscillates in a downward spiral. So with a little bit of an improvement, that's the oscillation upward, and then it'll come back down, and then oscillate a little bit, and then come back down. So I wouldn't be surprised that he dies before the end of the month, all right? Now, it's the 25th, so that means it would be in about 3 days. I do not think that he's going to see the end of March. So, if he does survive February, it's going to be, shortly after where he passes. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the magnesium and zinc and boost up your immune system. Take it every day. If you're not feeling well because of the cold season, guess what? Take a double dose. Take one in the morning, take one dose in the morning, and take one dose in the evening. Make sure you drink with filtered water because it's water soluble. And vitamin C also helps to boost up your immune system, but it also helps with your skin. Like I said, this cross-links with the collagen. So drink it with filtered water. If you're not feeling well because of the cold season, take a double dose. Make sure you drink it with filtered water because it is water soluble. So take vitamin C with the magnesium and boost up your immune system. And guess what? Stack it. Take the vitamin C and the zinc together, all right? And you'll get your vitamin C, you get a good dose of magnesium and your zinc to improve your immune system. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off. This is a great stack just to improve your immune system. Vitamin C with magnesium and the magnesium and zinc. Take them together. All right. Let's take a look at something else. All right. I wanted to play Cash Jordan here.
This could be a really significant switch up. Mayor Adams meeting with Borders Are Tom Homan, where they talked about removing violent migrant gangs from New York City. Adams then announced that, he would issue an executive order allowing ICE agents on Rikers Island.
For years, New York has stood firm as a sanctuary city, blocking ICE from local jails and protecting criminals from deportation. But with gang activity reaching all-time highs, that's now changing, and ICE will now have full access to New York's notorious facility at Rikers Island. But to activists who sympathize with criminals and want open borders, this somehow puts our entire city in danger.
Police are trying to tackle the rapidly escalating violent crime among Venezuelan gang members in the city who have gotten into New York.
For 2 decades, ICE agents were allowed to operate at Rikers until the city passed sanctuary city laws banning officers from the jail complex.
I fear walking out of my house in the morning, going to work. It's really unsafe in this community.
There was women everywhere. That's NYPD Deputy Commissioner Cass Daughtry now touting the results of a 90-day operation, shutting down illegal gang activity.
When our communities are under attack, what do?
We know the intentions of the Trump administration. This is bad for New York City, and this is bad for New Yorkers.
That's because the people that are pushing for this kind of stuff are liberals that live in completely separate areas that don't have to deal with any of the fallout. They have no connection to it, but they think that they have like some sort of cultural solidarity with some, like random immigrant that came and is committing crime here.
So as the federal government tries to get gang members off our streets, our local government is doing the exact opposite. But what none of our local leaders will admit is that rising gang activity and crime are exactly what happens when you protect criminals while telling the law-abiding to stay quiet about it. Which explains why New York is reeling from simultaneous, unrelenting crime waves like shoplifting, robbery, and assaults in the subway where people have been caught lighting fires. All of it happening because we've removed every consequence for committing these types of acts in the name of social justice. But now that ICE is going into New York City's jails to deliver actual justice to gang members and criminals for crimes they've already committed, activists are losing their minds. Because to them, someone with a long criminal record who might have come here illegally just to victimize people isn't a criminal. Instead, they're the victim of an unfair world and of an unfair country called America, which to them is the real bad guy for having this thing called a border. And to this group, nothing is more repulsive than America electing a president whose goal is to enforce it by removing the wrong people from our country. Which brings us to the real reason why ICE raiding New York City's jails is so needed and so hated at the exact same time. Once it works and our streets are made much safer, those who've been advocating for these criminals are going to look really foolish. Because while these people claim law enforcement is toxic to immigrant communities, the immigrant communities reeling from crime are going to really benefit from this. Starting the very moment ICE enters our jails and comes out with the gang members our city was planning on setting free, leaving them to once again commit crime in the communities they've invaded. And as you're about to see, these gang members, they've only come here because this city helps them commit crime. So as you can see, New York City has quite a few criminals that it needs to move from its jails to its courthouse, which is where we're at right now. However, inside this courthouse, our criminals have a better chance of getting let off the hook with a slap on the wrist than just about anywhere else. And after getting released, they go back to the communities they've embedded themselves with and commit the same crimes over and over again, leading to a revolving door justice system that doesn't help anybody except the bad guys. But that's about to change because pretty soon ICE is going to be able to go inside New York City's jails where these repeat criminals are held, and they're going to be able to get them off our streets permanently.
This video was made while the gang members were in Ecuador, and its purpose is to recruit new members.
Then, when you fast forward, you see the same individuals where? In Times Square. So that's our concern.
The NYPD says Tren de Aragua has been making it over the border with the migrant influx,
and is getting established.
So if you're a gang member like one of these guys and you want to commit as much crime as possible, your best bet is to go to a place where the local legal system does not take your actions seriously at all. And sadly, New York City's decriminalization efforts have made this just such a place. And members of this notorious gang have apparently been arrested hundreds of times. How is that possible? If these individuals are not being immediately released after they wind up in the back of a police car. And sadly, our legal system has made New York a place that just hands out unlimited get-out-of-jail-free cards that these gang members have and are using to commit moped crime, robbery, shoplifting, and assault, all of which are now at levels that have the law-abiding in this place looking over their shoulders when they leave their homes in the morning while they step over piles of stolen goods that these gang members hand to women in suitcases who then sell them on the streets.
I just had a chat. I just noticed that there was a chat request in Rumble. To find my old videos, go to Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. All right? You should be able to find many of these videos that were taken down by YouTube or hidden by me on YouTube because I didn't want strikes. So that early research that was going on in 2020, you should be able to find on Brighteon. So that would be probably the best spot. But I also have backups on Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. That's the reason why I said, make sure you subscribe to all my channels. So there's some videos that are hidden because of strike issues. There were others that were taken down during the censorship on YouTube. So the important videos, I backfilled some of these backup channels. But some of those videos you're not going to be able to see because I didn't backfill, but many of the important ones are there. So the best source is to look at Brighteon, my channel on Brighteon. And you can also find some of them on Rumble. But all the good, really important ones of that 2020 era that I think that I did are on Brighteon. So the best source is Brighteon. But the problem is the censorship on YouTube. You know, I had 2 channels blown up on YouTube. And then videos taken down on the ones that did survive. And then I had to hide a lot of them because of just, if I put them up, they'll get a strike. So unfortunately, but the thing is, I don't know why you would even want to watch them because the war is over. Why do you want to keep on watching the same war? All right. The bottom line is really simple. There were nefarious things going on in the laboratory that ended up being released. So why do you need to look at something that's already done? I mean, the war is over. But those videos are on Brighteon if you want to watch them. All right.
This are out there making a big fuss about getting people like this out of here permanently is alarming. And it means they've aligned themselves with criminals at the expense of the very immigrant communities they claim they're advocating for.
Some worry this could open the door to tougher crackdowns on immigrant communities. Today, supporters rallied at Foley Square in downtown Manhattan. New York City is a sanctuary city, and this means local laws limit how much the city cooperates with federal immigration enforcement. They are
also New York City's mayor. He's in a lot of trouble locally because he wants to cooperate with the new president who wants to get these criminals out of our city. But because of that, there are calls locally for him to step down, and if he won't step down, for the governor to step in and remove him. That's how badly they want our precious criminals to get to stay here as long as possible. And they're okay with keeping these people on the streets if it means not cooperating with President Trump, who just decided to throw out the mayor's historic bribery charges, which many say were politically motivated after the mayor complained about how the last president handled the asylum crisis, openly saying that this crisis would destroy New York City, and depending on where you live, it might look like that's already happened. And right now in Queens on Roosevelt Avenue, we're witnessing a massive police surge that has been going on for several months already, with the goal of stamping out gang activity in that particular neighborhood. This was a haven area for this Tren de Aragua group, and over the last couple of years, residents say crime in that neighborhood has exploded. And right now, you've got police officers all over the place. However, the gang members are still lurking in the shadows, waiting for the police to leave. And as soon as they do, their conscripts will begin robbing the local businesses and selling the items right on the sidewalks in front of those stores once again. But this neighborhood, it's incredibly diverse, and it's one of those places that makes New York City great, but it can't do that if we're going to allow gang members to run around there and take it over from the inside. Yet the activist crowd here maintains that getting dangerous criminals off the streets is somehow an attack on every immigrant.
We have 300.
YouTube Premium is ad-free YouTube and the YouTube Music app all together. Uninterrupted.
Every immigrant?
We have 350,000 students in the New York City public schools who speak languages other than English at home. And right now they're extremely scared, and many of them have stopped coming to school because they fear deportation.
Mayor Adams responds to the So, my wife is an immigrant, and we've got 2 daughters living in our bilingual home who are now at school. And you know what? The topic of deportation has never come up at our dinner table. And obviously, these activists are putting forth propaganda. Here they are saying that over 350,000 students are now afraid to go to school. But New York City only has 870,000 public school students. And we're supposed to believe that 40% of these kids are in legitimate danger from deportation, not because they're even here illegally, but according to that activist, that they speak another language at home that isn't English.
It's all fear mongering from the crazy left. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Help support my work, and you get to help support your health. Get the lozenges. I have elderberry and zinc lozenges, structural nanosilver lozenges, and Manuka honey. These lozenges are great to take during the cold season or during the allergy season. The cold season is starting to end and the allergy season is starting to begin. But the bottom line is this: you want to mitigate the irritant right away to prevent further problems. So get a few bags of my lozenges, Manuka honey, or the elderberry zinc structural nanosilver lozenges. I also have them in drop form, which is smaller than the lozenges, in 100 count. The lozenges are in a 21 count in each bag, but with the drops, they're in 100 count. Same thing during the cold season or during the allergy season. Take it right away to mitigate that irritation. Now, I have it in blueberry, in honey and lemon, and in cherry flavor, okay? So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, use discount 5, get a few bags for your household, have some at work, have some at your house, because you never know when you have that irritation. Take it right away to mitigate the problem, all right? A lot of people don't realize that if you do get sick, and it's benign, just like 5 days, 7 days, all right? It takes 2 weeks for your body to heal from that inflammatory response and the damage that is caused from those cells in the tissue. Benign, run-of-the-mill cold. Now, if you start getting bronchitis or pneumonia, now take that out a month of healing or 2 months of healing, depending how bad. And if you get sick, just benign, 3 times a year, guess what? Almost a quarter of your year has been either through infection or through healing from the infection. A quarter of the year. And so when your body's healing, you're not going to have the energy, and your immune system is not going to be healing your body. It's fighting the problem and remodeling. Your body's remodeling the problem, you know, in trying to heal from that. But it's not paying attention to the other tissues that are not affected. So if you reduce the number of incidences and the severity every year, then what happens is that your immune system is boosted up and your body is more focused on other tissues for the healing process. And so you age slower. You ever wonder why people age faster when they're sick all the time? I just told you why. Because your immune system and your body's focused on the remodeling from the infection and not on your other tissues. And during this exposure, you are getting a lot of free radicals. So it makes sense to soak up those free radicals. Please take my advice. The moment you have that irritation, take the drops or the lozenges right away. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
Deportation of criminal gangs who traffic people and products illegally in our country as an anti-immigrant roundup is the epitome of misinformation. But because there are so many New Yorkers here who hate Trump and ICE, there's a willing audience here that will suspend reality and believe this stuff, which will just end up benefiting these gang members at the expense of law-abiding immigrants, something enabled by our sanctuary city laws and no other reason.
For 2 decades, ICE agents were allowed to operate at Rikers until the city passed sanctuary city laws in 2014, banning officers from the jail complex. A provision in one of those laws permits Adams to issue that executive order so long as it's, quote, for purposes unrelated to the enforcement of
10 years. That's how long ICE has been banned from getting dangerous criminals out of our jails and removing them from our country completely. Something that's been done in the name of public safety, but now the general public is just less safe, especially when you've got the same people committing crime over and over again and just getting released to do it again. Between sanctuary city laws and decriminalization, we've got the perfect combination of rules that benefit the wrong people. And many of these criminals entered our country over the last 2 years on buses from the southern border and then immediately made their way to immigrant communities that were already established, blending in with them and ruining them. And with New York City's endless promise of free housing, medical care, food, and clothing, a promise that does not disappear when one finds themselves in the back of one of these corrections buses, these gang members have had it made from a crime standpoint. But the problem is our criminal sympathizers don't think any of this is a real problem, which must mean their personal lives are totally disconnected from the plight of the New Yorkers who have to deal with this stuff every single day. And it must mean that even when this stuff does make the mainstream news, they're still willing to ignore it. So here we are in a neighborhood that seems to have a loitering, trespassing problem at a lot of these buildings and local businesses. But the problem with New York is that stuff like this, if you don't live near it and it doesn't happen in your neighborhood, you can choose to not believe it, and your everyday life would reinforce that false belief, which is exactly how we can have a city full of activists and neighborhoods.
All right, breaking news from Bloomberg. U.S. consumer confidence fell by the most since August 2021 on concerns about the economic outlook and uncertainty.
That are full of gang members. The two never cross paths. And those out there advocating for immigrant communities never go to the immigrant communities, which are afflicted by this new type of crime. Which is too bad, because every day new evidence comes out that these neighborhoods have a real problem and could really use somebody to advocate for them.
And this department is committed. We're not going anywhere. That's NYPD Deputy Commissioner Kaz Daughtry with me on Roosevelt Avenue, 3 months after our last walk down this corridor. There was women everywhere. Now touting the results of a 90-day operation, shutting down illegal gang activity.
So this avenue, it's the focal point of gang activity in our city, and it's in the heart of a very diverse community that's been around for decades. But because of our sanctuary city laws, which protect gang members and criminals, the wrong people have infiltrated this place, and the types of illegal activity going on here are unlike anything I've seen anywhere else in New York. For example, you've got these vans, which are like miniature mobile shopping malls. The doors are open, they're full of products. You've got people standing out in front looking out for the police, and if they show up, they close their doors and drive away, which is an even more blatant way of selling stolen products than the people who spread out tools on blankets from Home Depot. And here you've got a community that is begging for something to be done to make their neighborhood safer. They want more police there. Yet for some reason, the immigrant activist crowd is completely ignoring the plight of this neighborhood. And the reason these activists are not in in these local communities is because the crime that's happening there doesn't fit their predetermined belief system of what's actually crime and what's actually not crime.
985 arrests, that along with close to 12,000 summonses, hundreds of confiscated vehicles. This was Mayor Adams at a town hall Wednesday night.
We walked the streets, not 1 p.m., 1 a.m., 2 a.m. And when I went back there the other day.
So is New York City's mayor perfect? No, absolutely not. And in fact, he might not even be there by the time you watch this video. However, the thing that makes activists so upset about him is that he's mayor of people that live in neighborhoods that have a crime problem, and he goes to those neighborhoods and he sees for himself what's going on. Which is why he's had no problems signing on with a deportation agenda focused on criminals and dangerous individuals who are already in New York City's custody. That makes perfect sense. These criminals are destroying our neighborhoods, and if we release them, they're just going to keep doing it. But if you're a rich elitist activist who doesn't live in one of New York City's less affluent zip codes, you might not think any of this is really happening. And if you don't live near a shelter that's got these gang members living inside of it who are trying to recruit new members from it, you and your friends can tell each other that this stuff's not actually happening, and you can maintain your lifestyle while advocating for criminals who shouldn't even be here in the first place.
Rosa Sanchez says she still doesn't feel safe after a man chased her daughter last month.
I fear walking out of my house in the morning, going to work, and returning. It's really unsafe in this community.
So these immigrant advocates, if that's who they say they are, they should be in neighborhoods like this advocating for people who are in a dire situation. But that's not what happened. This local community had to band together and get a hold of the news and get the cameras there and make so much noise that something eventually happened. They were even begging the governor to send in state troopers to do the job. They didn't think the NYPD had the resources to handle. Yet for some reason, we've got all these protesters who are down by City Hall protesting Trump, protesting the mayor. But it's not a real neighborhood where real people have to live with the neglect of our city on a day-to-day basis. With some folks saying they feel unsafe from the moment they leave their homes. And the last thing any community wants is for the gang members who are wrecking it to keep coming back. But that's exactly what's going to happen if these activists have their way. So put a stop to any of this cooperation between our mayor and federal officials who want to keep people safe. And if that happens, they'll just be stopping actual law-abiding immigrants from achieving the American dream by stealing that dream and turning over these areas to criminals who've come here for the express purpose of committing crime while exploiting the people around them, making these gang members and criminals the ones who are really putting immigrant communities at risk. What do you think about that? Is it the right move to allow ICE back into New York City's jails so that they can collect dangerous individuals when they're off the streets and disarmed and in custody where they can't hurt the general public? What would you say to activists who think that this type of law enforcement puts everybody at risk, even if they're not criminals? Let me know. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.
We need to be tough on illegal immigration and stop the funding of these nonprofits like Catholic Charities. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the multivitamin that I have. This is an easy-to-digest multivitamin. You should be taking a multivitamin every day as your daily routine, your daily stack to improve your health. Now, multivitamins and minerals are cofactors for enzymatic activity. So when you fuel your body with the proper multivitamins and minerals, you're going to have better enzymatic activity for your cellular processes. That's really important, especially when you get older. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get this multivitamin. It's easy to digest. Add it to your stack. Now, you should be taking Goodnight Formula every day. Why? Because it's going to allow you to get into 3 cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep. It's through good sleep where you're detoxifying your central nervous system. You're going to be well rested when you wake up, and you are going to consolidate memory. Sleep deprivation, chronic sleep deprivation, increases your cortisol levels, so you're hurting your immune system. Your immune system is weaker because of lack of sleep. In addition, you're not consolidating memory, so your memory is going to fade. And you're building up toxins, so over time, with chronic sleep deprivation, what's going to happen is you're going to have early onset of dementia. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Take this every day, and not only that, you're going to be able to be more well rested. You're detoxifying your body, You're consolidating your memory. And as part of an overall protocol, having good sleep is going to slow down the aging process. All right. So when you get into your geriatric years, you're not going to have some of the problems with early onset of dementia. You're not going to have the problems of that build up toxins in your central nervous system. And you're going to improve your neuroplasticity, your positive neuroplasticity, with restful sleep. So don't get into the trap of, just taking supplements and not caring about your sleep. Sleep is a major holistic part of the process. Now, let me tell you the holistic approach: proper supplementation, proper diet, and exercise. That exercise consists of weight training, cardio, stretching, and balancing exercises. You need to do all three of them, or all four of them, because you need to improve your muscles and your tendons and your joints, build muscle mass, improve your bone structure and bone density, but also activate that cerebellum for balancing. Because by activating all these different neurons, you're going to actually be healthier over time. Now, it's also mindfulness, meditation, or spirituality is an important feature to this. Sleep, proper sleep, not too much sleep, but not chronic deprivation, because restful sleep is going to slow down that aging process and improve your immune system. All right, so it's a holistic approach. All right, and then you have to learn new things and get that positive neuroplasticity. Talk to real people, read and write, and think about new things, not just the domain that you know about, either from work or from school or from your formal academic training. Learn new things. Too many people are focused on their work and that that's all they're focused on, or they're focused on one aspect of their academic career. They're just kind of so focused on biology or history or whatever. You need to learn new things. All right, really important to have that positive neuroplasticity. If you apply this to your life, this holistic approach with the proper supplementation and the proper stacking, you're going to get healthier. All right, so please pay attention. Sleep is a major component to improving your health. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the Good Night Formula and get the multivitamin. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off. All right, let's go to Bloomberg here.
That's moved 10-year yields. Everyone's talking about things like term premium. That's not moving the market. In my opinion, the single thing that's moving the 10-year treasury right now is expectation for rate cuts. And you look at the correlations there; they're like 98%. So the fact that you have overnight rates expectations moving so abruptly, that's moving the long end of the market as well.
I heard a guest on earlier today talk about a flattening yield curve, maybe an inverted yield curve. Do you see that occurring? And if so, why would that happen?
So the yield curve flattening a little bit, it would not be a massive surprise, particularly if the Federal Reserve were to cut 1 or 2 times and then stop and do nothing for, say, a year or two. That typically does get you to a flatter yield curve environment. To have an inverted curve, I think what you need to see is a particularly slowing economy with faster growth, so stagflationary environment, because the Federal Reserve will be more reluctant to cut interest rates as inflation is above their target. But the long end of the curve would suggest that, hey, because growth is so bad and maybe inflation will come down eventually because of how bad growth is, that the Fed eventually will cut. So that will get you the inverted yield curve.
All right, let me do a market update here because something is happening in the market. All right. Okay, so we have the S&P 500 is trading at 5,919. It's stressed. VIX has popped up to 21.38, so stress in the market through the VIX. You also have that stress indicator of US Japanese yen that I've been telling you about. That's trading at 148.68 now. So yen is strengthening, VIX is going up, equities are going down. Euro USD is at 1.05. Oil is trading, has almost broke $69 a barrel. And Bitcoin, the ITO, is trading below 20. It's at 19.96. So Bitcoin is stressed. So something is happening in the market at this moment in time. Let's continue on and follow what's going on here.
Inflation expectations have come down a hair today, but it's really the real yield that's come down quite a lot.
Tom King on the real yield quote. That's his jam there. So
okay. All right.
In addition to the VIX. All right, Ira, thanks so much for joining us. Ira Jersey, Chief U.S. Interest Rate Strategist from Morgan Intelligence. He is badged in down there at the Princeton campus, which is a sight to behold. They've got a ton of EV chargers down there.
Do they still?
Yeah, like more. They add more and more all the time.
Well, isn't the administration looking to pare back any sort of federally funded charging stations in highways?
This is.
Wait, they get this for free?
Charging?
Princeton, yeah.
We've talked about this.
Yes.
Oh.
So like now you want to go to Princeton, so you don't have to deal with the tolls.
Well, first they'd have to get an electric vehicle.
Yeah, but the Princeton.
So they're essentially getting free gas, basically.
And free breakfast and free lunch. I'm telling you, folks in Princeton, they got a wired in.
To be fair, we also get free breakfast and free lunch. Just put it out there.
operation.
But sometimes they have plus
lunch.
All right.
I want free course for my car.
All right, S&P
Good lunch
500.
in there.
We are selling off here down 1%. The Nasdaq off 1.6%. One more coming up. This is.
Yeah, there's definitely a market sell-off here that's taking place. All right, so let's pivot over to let's go to Mark Levin because we need our blood pressure up.
It's Sunday. Thanks for being here with two great guests. America's wise man, I call him, Victor Davis Hanson, and Rebecca Heinrichs, who's an expert on Russia. I think we need to dig into Russia a little bit. But before we do, it was really an honor for me and my wife and some family members to attend CPAC and not just participate, but to watch Donald Trump speak. He is a fantastic speaker. The substance, the entertainment, the jokes, the sharp edges. And I came home last night and I was thinking about what he said. And what I do is I write and I think about these things. So I wrote something and I want to share it with you. I think it's important. Listen to it beginning to end and then you'll understand why I wrote it. American Marxism, that's a book I wrote obviously, but American Marxism, dressed up as some kind of progressive or modern ideology, was not a product of the American experiment. It is a rejection of it. It is a rejection of Judeo-Christian values and principles, a rejection of John Locke and Montesquieu, the most important philosophers to inform the founders and the framers. It is a rejection of the Declaration of Independence, which was and is the most concise statement of America's birth and purpose, and a rejection of the American Constitution, which established a Republican government, not a centralized state, nor a democracy, both of which are preludes to tyranny. And the framers understood that. The ideology of which I speak, self-characterized as progressivism and therefore camouflaged as human progress and advancement, is dark, inhumane, and regressive in every respect. And that's the modern Democrat Party, their media, academia. At its core, it is the fanatical belief that there really is no individuality. There's no individuality. In fact, for an individual to become fully realized, he must surrender himself to the greater good, as defined by a relative few of masterminds. Indeed, the individual can only truly be free and fulfilled by serving the collective, and through this collective, the so-called greater good, the so-called best interests of the larger community, etc. In other words, as an indivisible and invisible minuscule part of a bigger, indeed immense, centralized design. Now, for us nerds, that's Rousseau, that's Hegel, that's Marx, that's Woodrow Wilson, and today, virtually every political science department in America's colleges and universities. That's how they view the world, for starters. So this requires the abandonment of so-called eternal truths. The notion of natural law and God-given unalienable rights is set forth in our Declaration of Independence. The abandonment of knowledge and science. There are not, for example, two and only two biological sexes. In fact, it requires the abandonment of God, of human experience and history, existing social bonds, including parents to children, values and customs and traditions handed down from one generation to the next that keeps the civil society glued together. We must be cut off from the past. The past must be condemned and denigrated. Even language must change. Re-education through primary schools to the media and the public square to reinforce this new way. The re-engineering of society and the culture and the individual and humanity itself in support of this march toward this centralized political and governing utopia, the details and particulars of which are intangible and the achievement of which is impossible. It requires groupthink, thought control, which in turn requires the condemning, the ridiculing, the ostracizing, even outlawing at times, reasoning, logic, debate, contrary views, academic freedom, freedom of speech, and a true free press. The institutions of the civilized society, born from the Enlightenment, must not only be questioned, but ultimately bulldozed. Not all at once, but gradually, because they don't want you to notice. And then more aggressively, when they think it doesn't matter if you notice. Of course, and obviously, this means that our Constitution, which has built-in barriers and firewalls, checks and balances, separation of powers within the national government and between and among the national government and state and local governments, must be eradicated. This is precisely why the so-called early progressive intellectuals in the late 1800s and early 1900s, including Woodrow Wilson, who would be a Democrat president later, relentlessly and furiously attacked both the Declaration and the Constitution, especially separation of powers and federalism. He talked about the need for a living and breathing Constitution and compared it to the human body. How, he asked, can a person live if his organs are constantly working against each other rather than harmony? Wilson and his ilk argued that we are not bound by the decisions and doctrines of the past, that we need not adhere to them, any more than the authors of the Constitution were bound by those who preceded them. We are free to do as we wish, just as they were, he said. We need not worship them. We need not worship their words of the Declaration and the Constitution. Wilson was arguing for a sinister revolution in which the instrumentalities of the federal government would be turned into the tools of this so-called new progressivism, which again was a form of European totalitarianism, which I have termed American Marxism. And Wilson, again, speaking for many other scholars and intellectuals at the time, ultimately argued that the best way to pull this off was through a ubiquitous, centralized bureaucracy, populated with like-minded experts, which would be detached from the elections and the popular will in order to impose with scientific and mechanical certainty a new society on the masses, unencumbered by the past, indeed a complete break from the past. And he argued the most certain way to accomplish this would be through the judiciary, with a careful selection and appointment of ideological comrades who serve for life would drive this revolution and give it a legal pretext, a legal justification, and authority. This is why we have a massive federal government with hundreds of federal departments and agencies, multi-millions of federal bureaucrats, trillions and trillions in debt, millions of miles in red tape, tens of thousands of regulations, and so forth. You didn't vote for any of this. In fact, your so-called representative government in Congress, they don't have any idea what's going on. And then they take this entity and they place it in the executive branch. The most powerful legislative body is not Congress. It's not in the legislative branch, it's in the executive branch. And I'll tell you where it's not. It's not in the Constitution. It's not in the Constitution. This is what has happened. This is also why faith and family, including parental control, are under constant attack. This is why free speech, a true free press, and real learning and academic freedom are smothered by indoctrination and propaganda, and essentially in our public schools run by two unions and two union bosses answerable to the Democrat Party. This is why our societal norms, traditions, and customs, actual knowledge, actual science are being systematically suppressed and demonized, constantly under attack. We must break. We must break from what is. We must break from our history. We must break from our families, from our faith, in order to focus on, rely on, and have desperate need for this massive centralized government.
This is what I've been saying for a long time. The erosion of God, country, and family in the United States by the ultra left. They want to demonize religion and spirituality. They want to demonize the family unit, and they want to demonize country. And there's going to be this, ultimate takeover. Now, I did a recording with Miss Taiwan. I'm going to be releasing that soon. And we kind of talk a little bit about this, but we talk about we were talking about a little bit about Hollywood. We talked about Taiwan and the geopolitics of Taiwan, and then also the new paper from Dr. Shi. But this is that whole God, country, and family. To make the country strong, we need to have a citizenry that's aligned with God, country, and family. But the ultra left wants to demonize those three pillars of society. The ultra left are crazy. They're literally crazy.
And the masterminds who run it. So importantly, this is why the American Marxists, or the self-described progressives, that run the Democrat Party, that run corporate media, that run our colleges and universities, that run the government unions and populate so much of the judiciary, do not care how much fraud, waste, and abuse exists in the federal government, and reject efforts to manage, reduce, and limit the power of this massive bureaucracy and its army of bureaucrats ruling over our lives, we as individual Americans. They could care less. They seek to protect it. They seek to secure it. This is why these judges are using their positions, the law, and even the Constitution in such perverse and diabolical ways to undo the results of the November election, your landslide election, and indeed sabotage President Trump, Elon Musk, and those who are fighting to preserve this country, to recalibrate the balance of power and separation of powers, crucial to our liberty and civil society, and breathe life back into our Constitution and our republic. And as a side note, George Washington had a man serving at his side who was foreign born. In fact, he was French. His name was Lafayette. And at least for now, Donald Trump has a man at his side who was foreign born, who's done great things for the country at the direction of Donald Trump. He's called Elon Musk. Now, like autocrats and Marxists abroad, the Democrat Party and its press are and will fight to the bitter end to preserve what they have created over the decades. They have created this monstrosity. They have and will fearmonger and are scaremonger. They will deceive. They will distort. They have and will wave around and cite the very Constitution that they abhor and have worked so hard to dismantle. They will use propaganda and their media platforms, not a real free press, propagandists for them, to accuse those who are honoring, following, and reviving the Constitution, namely President Trump and his administration. They will accuse them of destroying the Constitution and causing, you've heard it, a constitutional crisis. This is what autocratic regimes do, fascist and Marxist. They project onto their opponents who they are, and what they believe. Now, the problem for these people is that they spent years and years lecturing you and me about the evils of America, about the evils of America's founding, about the evils of the Constitution. That's right, written by slaveholders, that it's too old, that it's too white. The evils of our society, the evils of our economic system, the evils of the so-called selfish individual, the overly successful, meaning the wealthy, the racism inherent in merit, and of course, unfixable racism and sexism built into America's DNA. You've heard it all. They have spent years tearing down our country, tearing down our history, tearing down our founders, tearing down we the people. And now they expect us to forget. We don't forget. President Trump will go down in history as a truly great president because he's the first president to take on this sinister counter-revolution that seeks nothing less than to destroy your way of life, to destroy our system of government, to destroy our civil society, to destroy this great nation, and turn it into another failed European-style quasi-Marxist centralized government that lords over us and abuses us. That's the battle that's taking place. It is historic, and it will determine whether we live in freedom or in tyranny, because that's what the Democrat Party, that's what their press, that's what their professors, that's what they stand for. Tyranny. They wish to remake you. They wish to remake this society. They have changed our government. They're undermining our Constitution. That's the modern Democrat Party today. Bernie Sanders, a Marxist. Jamie Raskin, a Marxist. Look at AOC. Look at Tlaib. Look at Omar. Hakeem Jeffries. Research them. Check out who these people are. These aren't people who support the United States of America. These are people who are constantly, endlessly trashing us, ripping us down, while they waive the Constitution, while they talk about the individual, whether they talk about equality and liberty and all the rest. They hate us. Donald Trump loves this country. He's put his life on the line for this country. He's put everything aside to fight for this country. There's a unique time in history. And either we back him to help us survive as a free people, or we're going to lose this country. It's that simple. And I would encourage some of these never-Trumpers, some of whom have been in the conservative movement, not all, some of whom have worked in past Republican administrations, not all. Don't you think it's time to wake the hell up? Don't you think it's time to understand what's going on in this country? Don't you think it's time to help us and help this administration bring life back into our Constitution? If you don't, you're no better than the rest.
You've just come from Panama, and you said that your meetings in Panama went well.
Let's go to live now. They're speaking about the Trump budget bill.
Safer, stronger, and more efficient. And we are delivering on our campaign promises. It was not just the promises of President Trump, it was the promises of House Republicans. And just as we promised, I was on the campaign trail all last year, as you know, went all around the country. And I told them these things would happen. Just as we promised, by using his executive authority and instructing federal agencies to follow the law, illegal border crossings are now down dramatically. You've heard some of the numbers. Illegal alien encounters are down 87%. Known gotaways are down 93%. This is what real leadership looks like. And deportations of violent illegal aliens are well underway, as you know. In other areas, just as we promised, on the world stage, America is showing strength again. We maintain peace through strength. That's a core principle of our party. President Trump understands that. He more than understands it, he acts upon it. Before he even took office, he secured a ceasefire agreement and the return of hostages in Gaza. Colombia quickly reversed. They reversed their course and they vowed to accept citizens who were in America illegally from that country. Canada and Mexico quickly agreed to bolster their border security. Yeah, Canada now has a border czar, and they're going to help us make sure that fentanyl doesn't flow over that border. Just as we promised, President Trump is making transformational change to the bloated federal bureaucracy. Every single person understands the government is too big, it does too many things, and it does almost nothing very well. We've got to fix that, and we will. The DOGE auditors are doing work that Congress has not been able to do because we could not crack the code. We could not get inside these agencies to get the very important information that we have long needed. But they have found tens of billions in waste, fraud, and abuse, and it's only been a month. That process continues. Just last week, DOGE uncovered a $2 billion grant to a Stacey Abrams affiliated group that only had $100 in their bank account, a cheap website, and zero experience in managing energy projects. That was the subject of that grant. Just one glaring example of the enormous misuse of taxpayer dollars. And we're finding that every day. We're learning more and more about what has been hidden from Congress for so long. And this is going to change the way the federal government works and operates. It is truly transformational. Just as we promised, as President Trump works to clean up the mess President Biden has made, congressional Republicans are taking action to do the same. Last week, Leader Scalise released a list of Biden administration rules that House Republicans will roll back through the congressional review.
The problem with Congress was they allowed these agencies to stonewall them. They could have said, we're not going to issue any money until you show accountability. But Congress wasn't willing to do that. See, it took someone that was apolitical, Trump, to disrupt the system. Meanwhile, Congress could have pulled the funding to those agencies and demanded accountability. Look at what happened with USAID. USAID stonewalled Congress, but Congress, said, please give us your receipts. And they said no. They could have easily said, okay, no more funding. And then immediately force firings of the high level staff of USAID. They didn't. So Congress was complicit with this problem. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the great toothpaste that I have. This whitens your teeth, freshens your breath, reduces inflammation at the gum line, helps to heal that gum line. And with good oral hygiene, you're reducing the chances of valvular disease and vascular disease. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get this structural nanosilver toothpaste. It is fluoride free, and it's the best toothpaste that you're going to be able to buy. It is a little bit more expensive. I did lower the price on my website. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get this structural nanosilver toothpaste at the new price, and get a few tubes of this toothpaste for your household. And you'll notice that this is the best toothpaste that you've ever used. Now, help support my work by getting the toothpaste, and help support your oral hygiene by getting the toothpaste. It's a win-win situation. Use discount 5 to get $5 off. Get a few tubes of this toothpaste from my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
Growing our economy and ensuring we don't have the largest tax increase in U.S. history, as was just recounted here, and a return to peace through strength. We do not have time to waste. The American people are expecting us to deliver on this, and we will. And House Republicans need to unite so we can keep this process moving forward, and I think they all understand that. We're working right now to get everybody on board. I think everybody wants to be on this train and not in front of it. And so we're going to answer the remaining questions and get everybody on board, and we're going to deliver on that mandate we told the American people that we would do. That'll take a couple questions. Okay.
You said that this is just the start of the process. Can you say unequivocally that further down the line there won't be any cuts to Medicaid programs?
Yeah, so look, let me clarify what we're talking about with Medicaid. Medicaid is hugely problematic because it has a lot of fraud, waste, and abuse. Everybody knows that. We all know it intuitively. No one in here would disagree. We had a hearing in budget just last week, or week before last, and they asked the experts, and the estimate is, I think it's $50 billion a year in fraud alone in Medicaid. Those are precious taxpayer dollars. Everybody is committed to preserving Medicare benefits for those who desperately need it and deserve it and qualify for it. What we're talking about is rooting out the fraud, waste, and abuse. Every taxpayer, it doesn't matter what party you're in, you should be for that because it saves your money. and it preserves the programs so that it is available for the people who desperately need it. That's what we're about. And that's what you're going to see happen. We want to make sure that illegal aliens who do not qualify are not on the rolls. And we know that they are in many places. We can achieve a lot of savings with that. We can eliminate all these fraudulent payments and achieve a lot of savings. What you're doing with that is you're shoring up the program, and you're making sure that the people who rely upon that have it, and that it's a better program. Right. That's what we're talking about. You've heard the president say that. You've heard members of the House Republican Conference say that. And no one else has said anything else except the Democrats who have ads out that are lying about the intention here.
Because the Democrats just want to create fear in the population and not really pay attention to the corruption that's been going on that Donald Trump is trying to root out.
I just explained that. So watch how the process plays out over the coming weeks, and you'll see what we're talking about. Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, should Elon Musk allow President Trump's cabinet to make their own decisions on personnel?
I'm not going to tell the executive branch how to operate. I've got enough to handle over here in the legislative branch. But I would say that I think the vast majority of the American people understand and applaud and appreciate the DOGE effort, the goal to scale down the size and scope of government. Our party is committed to that as a core principle. We always have been. And the reason we're excited about what Elon Musk and the team at DOGE are doing, the end result of that is going to be achieving the goal that we've always had, and that is to make government more efficient, just as the name of that operation and that project implies. And if we can save $1 trillion in fraud, waste, and abuse, which Elon has said in recent weeks and told me in his office a couple of weeks ago, he thinks it's very possible this year to identify and eliminate $1 trillion of waste of your taxpayer dollars. You ought to be standing up and applauding that, and we all do. Yeah.
President Trump is long said that he wants to help the dreamers. What is the Republican plan to do that? Will dreamers be part of the budget reconciliation?
Yeah, well, you can't do big policy changes in reconciliation. As you know, it's limited to what you do with the budget itself. But there's lots of talk about big changes to immigration policy. I came off the House Judiciary Committee before I was Speaker of the House. For almost 8 years, I served there. And when in my first 2 terms, we worked really hard on comprehensive immigration reform. And I learned firsthand how difficult and complex that is. So there'll be a lot of thoughtful discussion about that. We're not on those issues right now, but it will come, I think, later in this Congress, because we understand the immigration system has been broken. Securing the border was the first and most immediate priority of the American people, and that's what's happened here. The president has done it with executive orders. We now have to codify that. When we get to that, we'll be addressing the rest of the issues. Yeah.
President Trump called Zelensky a dictator. He's also saying he's responsible for the war that Russia started with 22 invasion. You guys were off when you made those comments. I haven't heard you respond, such as the dictator comment. And I wanted to know what you think of Mr. Trump's comment, and also how the administration's position on Ukraine. Have you rethought your move to bring Ukraine aid to the floor last year?
Well, yeah. So the supplemental last year was to put Ukraine in the position to be in a posture where a peace negotiation would take place. I said for more than a year on the campaign trail that I knew that when President Trump was elected, he would be the changing agent. He would be the force who could come in and move.
Okay, I'm going to pivot over. I'm going to pivot back. I'm going to pivot over to Bloomberg here for get an update on what's going on.
This is from NVIDIA. We're going to get those results after the close of regular trading tomorrow. It's the most actively traded stock right now. The shares of NVIDIA down 3.25%. Restrictions on selling to China, that could be a cloud over the company. At least that's according to Dan Ives at Wedbush Securities.
I think some of this stuff does go in the background, but no doubt it has been white knuckle to start the year. You don't know what's going to come out from a regulatory perspective in terms of this U.S.-China cold tech war.
Right now, the S&P 500, 55 points lower. That is down 0.9%. The Dow lower right now, down 53 points, and the Nasdaq 100, 335 points lower. The declines there continue, down 1.6%. I want to say the real action actually has been the Treasuries. Yields pushing lower after the latest economic data. The consumer confidence is measured by the Conference Board falling more than expected. So right now you have the twos down 8 basis points, 4.08%. The 10-year, 10 basis points lower, 429. And oh yeah, also one of the most active, Tesla. Tesla's market cap has now fallen below $1 trillion. And we check the markets for you all day long, right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker, and that's your Bloomberg Business Flash. Alex and Paul.
If you're in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York City, it's getting warmer out there, kids. We're streaming live on YouTube, so head over to youtube.com, search Bloomberg Podcast Live. As John Tucker was just reporting, a sell-off in the market, some economic data moving the market here, and that's before we're going to get a big NVIDIA print tomorrow after the close. Let's see where the action is under the hood. Isabel Lee joins us across asset for Bloomberg News. Isabel, what are you looking at?
Definitely the Magnificent Seven. They're plunging in correction territory after hitting their high in around December. That's raising $1.4 trillion in market value. So we have the Bloomberg Magnificent Seven index. That's an equal weighted gauge that tracks all the Magnificent Seven. It's fell around 10%. So that's really an interesting thing to look at, especially since, to your point, we have NVIDIA earnings tomorrow. And we know that NVIDIA's direction of travel typically influences the market. And it comes at a time when your stocks are really just vulnerable for any technical and systemic corrections. Options markets approaching NVIDIA's release are also less bullish. So there is that.
Well, yes, and also interesting too, we had the continued chip news. I have DC, like that overhang. This is also the first result since DeepSeek. So that's going to be really interesting. It's going to be a lot of fun stuff happening there. All right, let's go to Home Depot. We're going to talk to an analyst in just a moment, but just give us the headlines here.
This is a little bit of good news, up around 4%. They said that sales will rise less than expected this year, but the firm is anticipating that consumers will remain largely cautious. So comparable sales will turn positive in January 2026, and I think that's really what's buoying sentiment. Bloomberg Intelligence says full guidance is appropriately conservative. And it's just interesting to see Home Depot because it was the biggest winner during the pandemic, but people have stopped decorating their homes.
Well, let's go to John Tucker, our do-it-yourself correspondent.
Okay, here's my cure. My cure for Home Depot. We'll just sell 2x4s that are straight.
Really?
You go in there and you have to pick through the pile. It looks like spaghetti.
Where do you get your stuff now? You get it at a special
I
place.
get it at a lumber yard.
He's got a guy.
Yeah, he's got a guy.
Expensive, but the stuff, people have got to understand, it's the time. Time is money. You're working with a big 2x4 that costs less.
That's not going to work. No.
Any money.
See, Isabel?
I digress.
I know
Stuff you learn in the studio.
That's a flex, though, because that means you have space. I just have a tiny little apartment.
Well, it's time to upgrade.
Yeah, exactly. All right, 30 seconds on Supermicro.
Supermicro is interesting. It's down 8.5%. So today is the deadline for them to submit all outstanding financial reports to bring it back to compliance, basically for it to still keep on being listed in the NASDAQ 100. And let's just say if it gets booted out in the NASDAQ 100, it's also in the S&P 500. So that also remains into question. Our team covers index rebalancing. So it's really interesting to see whether it will still be there. The shares are now down 8.5%.
All right, Isabel Lee, thank you so much. We appreciate that. Isabel Lee, cross-asset reporter, Bloomberg News here. Bitcoin off 7.7%, $86,700. What is going on there? Let's go down to sunny Miami Beach, Florida, 75 and sunny, folks. That's where our good friend Mike McGlone, all the smart people are down there now. Mike McGlone, senior commodity strategist for Bloomberg Intelligence. Mike, Bitcoin, Tom Keen's asking from the Upper East Side, what's going on?
The classic example, Paul, of you're supposed to be selling when they're yelling, and that rally we had up to 100,000. I mean, it was as bad as 1999. Those of us who remember Pets.com and that stuff like that. And so there might be a lot of smart people down here, but one thing about people get very emotional about markets, and the key thing I have a problem with Bitcoin, it reached a great milestone at 100,000. You're supposed to be taking profits. Not everybody did. A lot of people got too enthusiastic. But the key problem is in the whole space, there's a massive excess of supply. On CoinMarketCap.com now, there's about 12 million cryptocurrencies listed. That's in millions. When I first started writing about it in like 2017 or so, it was a couple thousand. So that's the key thing now. We have one crypto, Bitcoin, and then we have 12 million wannabes, massive supply, excess speculation. And I think it's also the leading indicator, as you pointed out earlier, it's leading everything lower.
So here's my fun question that I asked Ira Jersey. How low do we go here?
Yes, I think the key level to look for is around 70,000 for support. That would be normal. That's basically about where it was before it broke out higher. I mean, it's not much further when it's where it is now. When I said that a few months ago, people were not too happy. That's the key thing about being a bear in a bear market. No one loves you. But I just pointed out facts. So I don't know, the key thing at this point is I don't know what stops it. The bottom line, I like to say, is cryptos will be okay as long as the stock market goes up. And that's the key problem. What you're looking at, I think, in Bitcoin and all these cryptos is leveraged beta. I mean, Bitcoin trades 3 times the volatility of gold and S&P 500, and they're all heading lower. It's just Bitcoin's leading indicator, and it's the most speculative and excessive, and it has unlimited supply in that whole space.
Gold off 1.9% today. Mike, is that just a market move?
Yeah, it's a margin call thing. We saw that in 2008. Gold has massive longs and futures. I mean, people are riding that rally. It's off short term. I think gold bumping up to good resistance around 3,000. I'm glad you mentioned it. If you look at that Bitcoin to gold ratio, it's plunging, which means gold's outperforming. I think that's going to be by the end of this year. We'll see that gold's going to really beat the Bitcoin, partly because if Gina Adams is right and the stock market continues to decline, gold should be the beneficiary. But also you mentioned, the thing about gold, I want to point out, it's the most expensive ever on a 35-year basis versus the Bloomberg 20-plus Treasury bond index. So Treasury bonds are really cheap versus gold.
So, it's totally fair, and you look at indications and it might say the same thing. Why wouldn't Bitcoin be a good diversifier along with gold? That's what really perplexes me about that asset class, because at sometimes it's safe haven, at sometimes it's a risk on, risk off, and it's really hard to gauge what is going to move it when, on what day.
Because Bitcoin has a much higher correlation to the stock market and other cryptocurrencies than it does to gold. And the key thing about gold's correlation to the stock market over time is basically zero. And obviously when stocks go down, higher goes down with it. But it's that key correlation. The key thing I want to point out is you look at things like Shiba Inu and Ethereum and Dogecoin. Bitcoin has a much higher correlation to those other cryptos than it does to gold, and has a very high correlation to the stock market.
WTI crude oil, we're now solidly below 70 at $68.90. Just a commodity sell-off here. Is there anything particular going on with WTI crude?
You don't want to fade Trump. He's got supply. He's got supply and demand in his favor. He wants prices to go lower, and the trend is already heading lower. And the key thing I want to point about crude oil is excess supply in the U.S. and OPEC and declining demand from China. I mean, what's good about the prices for it? The bottom line for crude oil, it probably has to get cheap around $56 a barrel, which is the break-even cost in the U.S., which is normal, what it usually does. And then it might have a little bit of a recovery. But for right now, it's heading down. Copper looks like it's peaked. Crude oil looks like it's peaked. Corn looks like it's peaked. Natural gas is bumping up. It's all commodities are just having that problem of elasticity of supply.
And just to point out, too, just to add, it's no but this time. This is an and. Iraq is going to see some flows of almost 200,000 barrels of oil get from Kazakhstan. That's been shut for 2 years. So at just the wrong time, you're getting that supply come on, and that's really denting any bullish enthusiasm you might have seen with more Iranian sanctions. Look at me, Mike. I'm adding a and to your statement. Okay, before I let you go, what's up with my coffee?
Oh, okay. Well, that's going to be more of a supply elasticity thing, and we'll bring on supply. It just takes a little longer. It's just not a major commodity. So it's just how much longer it's going to stay up the side. The key thing about coffee and cocoa, there's some in that equator area. So if that weather trickles down to the Corn Belt, that's a problem. But overall, like the Corn Belt, Brazil, soybeans and everything, the supply is pretty good. For overall, it's a bit of an outlier in terms of more normal commodities. The key thing is commodities pumped up way too much in 2022 overall, and now they're still heading lower because of those elasticity forces.
There you go. We'll do pork bellies next time, Mike. Mike Malone, senior commodity strategist with Morgan Intelligence. He was one of the first people pandemic to go down to Miami when the hit the fan. So
all right, let's play Fox News about Carville here.
Welcome back. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt is with us. The AP deal is a big deal to me, and this, frankly, you have reconfigured that room quite a bit, and you've invited in bloggers and invited in other media that traditionally have not been there. But I would go back and say that most of the mainstream legacy media, they were wrong on Pfizer, they were wrong on Russia, they were wrong on the case in New York, they were wrong on pretty much everything involving Donald Trump, and they never corrected themselves, did they?
Mm-hmm. They never did, Sean, and the winning continues here at the White House every day. Today, a federal judge right here in Washington, D.C., denied the Associated Press's emergency request for a temporary restraining order to
to restore their privilege of returning to the White House press pool. And the judge's denial of the Associated Press's request reinforces what I said from the podium last week and what President Trump has been saying. Covering the American presidency in the most intimate and limited spaces in this White House, in the Oval Office, on the Air Force One, is a privilege. It is not a legal right. And we want all voices to have that opportunity. And that's why we've expanded the James S. Brady briefing room to invite truly legitimate, independent journalists, podcasters, and other media types into that room to cover this president with honesty and accuracy and with real mindfulness of what the American people actually care about. I also want to thank you tonight, Sean, for fact-checking James Carville for the lies that he pushed on your program last week. Unfortunately, James represents the deranged and out-of-touch Democrat Party who continue to deny the reality that this country loves Donald Trump. And in fact, President Trump is enjoying his highest approval rating from the American people than he ever has, despite the years of lies, smears, and witch hunts by the Democrat Party. The Harvard-Harris poll today is incredible. When you looked issue by issue, the vast majority of the American people support what President Trump is doing. You showed it. 81% of the American people support deporting illegal migrant criminals from our nation's communities. 77% of Americans support a full audit into the waste and fraud that this federal government has been spending their tax dollars on. And that is the exact mission of DOGE. So these numbers, these approval ratings are what you get when you have a president who actually does what he promised he was going to do. And that's why the Democrats are facing their worst, lowest approval rating since 2018. Not even 40% of the American public supports the current Democrat Party. President Trump will continue to abide by the will of the American people who elected him to this big, beautiful White House behind me. And we are restoring common sense to our great country.
You know, I just showed this audience Harvard-Harris and where they stand on DOGE and cutting back wasteful spending. I showed CBS. All weekend long, if you look at CBS, they're not even looking at their own poll. The New York Times, USA Today, MSDNC, The Washington Post, CNN, fake news, Huffington Post, Newsweek, they all had some version. GOP lawmaker confronted by constituents angry with the Trump must cuts. It is contradicted, Caroline, by their own polls. And we're not talking about 55%, 78, 80% of the American people don't want they don't want their money spent this way, and they don't want their children and grandchildren robbed this way. And this is what Democrats call a constitutional crisis, and this is what the media falsely reports on. It's difficult to penetrate through that wall of, you know, frankly, propaganda and lies.
Mm-hmm. There are a lot of lies from the left, especially from the Democrat Party, and as you said, they're propagandists and the left-wing legacy media. But the president and our administration are cutting through those lies every single day with a mega level of access and transparency to the commander-in-chief. Nearly every single day, President Trump invites journalists into the Oval Office and gives them the facts and the truth because he has that on his side. And he is doing so much, accomplishing so much. The mainstream media can't even cover it all. I mean, today we had a major announcement on a Monday morning that Apple, one of the biggest companies in this world, is going to invest $500 billion right here in the United States of America and create 20,000 new jobs. America is open for business again because of the policies and the confidence that has been restored across this world because of President Trump being behind the resolute desk. And I just saw President Trump's statement, in case your audience has it, from a few moments ago. He says our country is doing very well, and he was just thinking about the company that was shooed away and canceled by the Biden administration who wanted to build the Keystone XL pipeline. He is inviting them back. We want the Keystone XL pipeline built. He wants a pipeline built in the Northeast, in New England, where I am from, where we have some of the highest electricity and utility rates in the country. This is a president who is constantly thinking about how he can help the American people, innovating and pushing groundbreaking ideas on every single issue. And that's, again, why the vast majority of Americans are seeing through the mainstream media and the Democrat Party's lies, because they are seeing real results come from this administration every single day.
Last question. How quickly do you think or anticipate the president will meet with President Zelensky and President Putin?
We expect those meetings to take place very soon, especially the meeting with President Zelensky. And as the president expressed today, he wants the critical minerals and rare earths deal signed. It is going to recoup American tax dollars for the hundreds of billions of dollars that we have paid for Ukraine's national defense. He expects President Zelensky to sign that deal. It's only right considering what the American taxpayers have done for Ukraine. If it were not for the American people, Ukraine wouldn't be a country anymore. President Trump knows that, and he's getting the American people what they deserve.
Well, and also will help them to have our partnership and us on the ground.
That's right.
Helping them, that'll give them money to rebuild their country, which is a disaster right now. And the killing goes out there. Caroline Levitt, we appreciated the White House briefing with Caroline.
All righty. I thought that was going to be more focused on Carville. It wasn't. So let me see if I can find that while we pivot over to now the Democrats are speaking about Trump's agenda.
Does this make the cost of living more affordable for them? We are going to see families who have a loved one in a nursing home have to figure out the future for their elderly parent or grandparent because Medicaid cuts will impact them. Will that make their lives better or more affordable? When community hospitals close, when community clinics close, will that make people's lives better or more affordable? Absolutely not. And there will also be an impact on local economies. We have data that shows for every dollar spent on SNAP, that means $1.50. That means it impacts the local economy by $1.50. By removing the support that the American people look to us to guarantee, we are not just going to hurt everyday Americans. We're going to hurt economies around the country.
I found the video.
Americans want us.
I found the video where Carville says that Trump regime will collapse. This was published 1 day ago.
Started, the collapse is coming. Let it collapse, because it's going to.
I want to have this very serious conversation. It's complicated. It's February. I think it's a little bit late. I think it's early March this year. But spring is coming. And with spring comes the most important event on the right-wing calendar. This is, you got to understand, this is the most important thing that's going on in Trump's America. Track meets. You heard me right. They actually have something they used to call, I think they still do, relay carnivals. And you never know what's going to happen on a track meet. You never know who's going to be running there. All right? And you got to stop and think about who's competing, particularly in girl sports. Because you never know. And this is the number one issue in America is not Vladimir Putin is running over Ukraine, getting ready to try to run over Western Europe. Number one issue in America is not that Warren Buffett and Walmart said strap in, we're coming in for some bad economic time. The number one issue in America is not that people need affordable health care or need to have retirement security, or young people need opportunity, or women have to be treated with dignity and have access to first-class health care. No. The number one issue, who is running in the girls' 400 meter at the state track meet? You and I we may not think about this, but boy, let me tell you, they do. And I think what they should do, and I'm going to give my right-wing friends a little advice on how to deal with it, you need to establish in right-wing America, with the full backing of Fox News, with the full backing of the House Republican caucus, with the full backing of RNC,
extra governmental agency called the Department of Gender Verification. Now, where are you going to recruit people to do this? I tell you that you can start with CPAC. In my opinion, they probably have a.
You know, the thing is, Trump's number one issue isn't the whole gender fluidity and biological men playing in female sports. That's not the number one issue for Trump. He's talking in hyperbole. Trump is literally, and he's not willing to say it, Trump is literally attacking so many different problems in society, domestically and also internationally, all at the same time. And it's like 4 presidents in one. He is extremely active. It's hard to keep up with it. And so he's saying the number one issue is just men playing in girls' sports. No, that's not the number one issue in Trump's agenda. But he is saying that we got to stop this whole gender, fluidity issue. I mean, I'm not even going to continue playing Carville because he's just horseshit. It's not even rational. He's not even rational. I mean, literally, yesterday there was speeches with Macron talking about ramping down the war in Ukraine. Obviously, that's not, girls' sports is the number one issue. I mean, Carville is not even focused on what is really happening. It's almost like the Democratic Party is is not even seeing reality. They have their own little virtual reality going on. Now, the thing is that Carville, at the end of the election of 2024, or the general election, Carville was right to say, hey, Democrats, you lost because of the way that you focus on your issues. He was right about that. But Trump isn't going to collapse because he's only focused on one issue. Trump, to say that he's focused on one issue is just not paying attention to the news. I mean, look at everything he's doing. I mean, now you may disagree with what he's doing, but he's doing a lot across the whole landscape. It's not one issue president. What a one issue president? Look at Biden. I mean, so I'm not even going to continue playing him. He's ridiculous. He's just trying to talk and project because the Democrats have failed. And it's like, well, Trump's gonna collapse in 30 days because he's focused on gender fluidity, preventing that from happening, and cleaning up the whole sports arena. The clown. Carville's a clown. All right. Let me push some products here before we pivot over. Please go to my store and get the stack. All right. This is the third pillar of my health protocol, bringing down inflammation. Turmeric and ashwagandha. Turmeric is an antioxidant, so it's going to soak up free radicals, and it's going to also bring down inflammation. That's good for your cardiovascular system and also for your immune system. Ashwagandha root is going to help control your cortisol levels and your blood glucose levels, bring down inflammation. That's going to help also with your immune system and your cardiovascular health. This is a great stack, dual purpose stack to help with your immune system and your cardiovascular health. By reducing inflammation in your cardiovascular system, what's going to happen is you're going to slow down the buildup of plaque. All right. And if you follow a certain protocol, you can actually reduce that plaque. Please go to my store and get the turmeric and the ashwagandha as a great stack. Now, to further enhance this stack, also take it with lignans. Lignans is a powder. You mix it with soft foods or with filtered water, a smoothie, however you want to take it. You get a small scooper, take one small scooper a day. And this lignans will bring down inflammation and soak up free radicals, help with your immune system and your endocrine system. You get the most benefit when you mix it with, when you take it with ashwagandha, turmeric, and lignans as a stack. Bringing down that inflammation, really important. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get this stack, or look at some of the other stacks that I have that have built up in anti-aging boxes and longevity boxes based on your particular needs and particular price point. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. All right. Let me go to Bloomberg here.
Consumer, and I'm kind of a picky, I like really high quality stuff, but I don't want to pay a lot for it. And Wendy's kind of fits that profile in many ways. First of all, they skew to a higher income buyer than a lot of the other chains. So that's something that I like. And I also like that in any sort of consumer oriented pick, because as I think there was news out yesterday, maybe by Bloomberg, that the top 10% is spending more than they ever have. And they spend on things like hamburgers, right? So we like that. We like their salads. In the summertime, they got a lot of traffic away from Panera, again, because it's a value option and it's convenient. So that's kind of my view. I don't want to own a whole lot of them. I want to own companies that are poised to beat the competition.
How about on the cost side, the cost of beef? I know that's been an issue for
cost of beef is, and here's the problem: they're fresh, not frozen, so they're buying from America. They don't really have the luxury that a lot of the other burger chains who are buying from South America and Australia. So that is an issue, and that's something that we're all going to have to suffer through for a little while here. But hey, I hear there are these things called tariffs.
Yes. Truth. Hey, Kim, always good to catch up. Appreciate you, Kim Forrest over at Boca Capital Partners. Thank you very much. All right, back to the market and sort of what led the latest decline within the equity market and the rally in the bond market is the consumer confidence data that came out. Mike McKee, international economics and policy correspondent, joins us here in studio. Mike, can you walk us through? I mean, we were already selling off in the equity market. We were already rallying in the bond market, but this was like kind of throwing water on a fire? No.
Yes.
Ashes on a fire, wood on a fire, gasoline. There we go.
Fire. I mean, we sold off on Friday because consumer sentiment in the Michigan survey was bad. This is 2 in a row, and that's a little bit scary because it's not just that there's been a little bit of a decline. There's been a big decline in both of them. This is the biggest decline since 2021 for the conference board number, and the expectations index is now at 72.9. That's the first time it's been below 80, which they say is a recession sign since June of 2024. And the reason it did then was when Joe Biden was dropping out of the race and everything was kind of crazy. So this is overall a pretty terrible report. The jobs numbers in the report suggest that people are losing confidence in their ability to get jobs and the number of jobs that will be available in the future and their potential income going forward. And all signs that you could see a pullback. Now, it's well known that people's spending habits don't necessarily follow the confidence figures that come out, but it is something for people to worry about.
All right, so we've got potentially a confidence issue, potentially a growth, I guess, question mark that maybe it's a little bit bigger than it's been recently. And then on Friday, we're going to get some inflation data here. What do you expect to see here? I'm looking at the consensus. Doesn't seem to be any pickup in inflation in terms of the consensus forecast.
It's going to be the interesting thing because the CPI this past month was not good, and PPI also added to those feelings. But the way the PCE is constructed, the inflation gauge coming out on Friday, that is what the Fed follows, it's probably going to show a little bit of softness, and it's going to come down a core to 2.6 from 2.8. Those aren't record lows, but it is progress in the right direction, which is what the Fed is looking for. At the same time, the Michigan inflation numbers have gone up both for significantly for the 1-year number and also for the 5 to 10 year number. And then today, while the conference board numbers aren't considered as reliable because people seem to pick numbers really weirdly, they also went up. People now think that inflation over the next year is going to be 6%. Now, that's a little bit high comparatively, but it does show that people are thinking that inflation is going to get worse.
Oh, if I were an economic advisor to President Trump, I might be saying, can you tone it down on the tariff talk a little bit? Because I think that's starting to come into the numbers. If you look at some of the survey data.
But isn't the Republicans are not even really showing, maybe a little bit of confidence decline, but it's mostly in Democrats and independents.
Well, true. We don't have a partisan breakdown in the conference board numbers. And this is a quote from them. There was a sharp increase in the mentions of trade and tariffs back to a level unseen since 2019, when the president was voting on tariffs. Most notably, comments on the current administration and its policies dominated the responses. So that appears to be sort of from both sides. And it is obviously something that people are worried about. So we need to keep an eye on that. Break-evens have gone up a little bit in the markets, but the market sell-offs we've seen have been limited. I mean, they are going down, but they're not falling out of bed. So whether the president wants to pull back or not, his comments have all been full speed ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Michael McKay, thank you so much. We appreciate that. Michael McKay does all the economic stuff for Bloomberg Television and Radio, joining us here.
I want to go to France 24, but before I do that, I might even go to Jen Psaki on MSNBC. But before I do that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nano silver gels. I have it in the tube form or in the quick dispenser form. It's a dual purpose product. It's a skincare. You can put it on your skin every day and then exfoliate later in the day to improve your skin. You can use it to heal a wound. It'll heal the wound quicker because it's keeping it clean. If someone's sick around you, put it on your hands, around your nose, around your eyes, around your ears, around your mouth, lightly coat your nostrils. It stays active for 5.5 hours. You can also use it as an aftershave. So guys, after you shave, put it on your face and it'll soothe that shave. Women, if you're shaving your legs, use this structural nano silver and put it on your legs after you shave. It'll reduce razor burn and heal the skin. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get these great high quality dual purpose products. Use discount 5 and get $5 off. And lastly, it's really important to improve your cardiovascular health with omega-3. Omega-3 will bring down LDL levels, increase your HDL levels, bring down systemic inflammation, prevent the red blood cells from oversticking, so it reduces overforming of clots. And it's a great way to improve your cardiovascular health. By reducing LDL and by bringing down inflammation, you're reducing the chance of oxidized LDL building up new plaque. So please go to my store, take the omega-3 and improve your cardiovascular health. Really important. Take it every day. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the omega-3. All right, let's go to MSNBC first.
Just days after Donald Trump swore in a conspiracy peddling far-right commentator with no relevant experience as the director of the FBI, he announced that he would be making Dan Bongino, a conspiracy peddling far-right commentator with no relevant experience, see a theme here, as the deputy director of the FBI. Now, it's important to note that in the Bureau's 117-year history, the FBI's second in command has always been a career agent with the kind of institutional knowledge necessary to actually run.
Oh, so you have to have institutional knowledge and be inculcated into the deep state. So if you have to push back on the president or slow walk or hide stuff from him, then you can. These agencies are so important. You have to hire from within, and they have to have the right inculcation where accountability to anyone other than the agency is allowed. Yeah. This is the problem with the administrative state. This is the problem with the deep state. This is the problem with the national security state. They don't want to be beholden to Congress, and they don't want to be beholden to we the people or the executive branch. They want their own serfdom, their own power with no accountability. And they always ask for more power when there's an emergency that takes place. These emergency powers that never get trimmed back. So you're supposed to only bring up people that will run the agency if they've been inculcated by that agency and they're a lifer. No, you can't have anyone new with new thinking and maybe with the idea of shrinking their budget, making them more accountable and more efficient. No, we can't do that. See, if you bring up someone to run an agency and you have a president that wants that agency to reduce their activities or change their way of doing business or restructure, well, you can have people push back more easily because there's groupthink that's going on. If you bring in someone new, it's easier to restructure. That's the way corporate works. All right? You bring in someone new, restructure it, you don't have to worry about the dead wood. But if you keep on hiring from within, you're always elevating the dead wood up. So they'll push back on restructuring if you hire someone from within. But not just that. If you have this common thought, right, within the deep state that the person in the executive branch is evil, then these people within these agencies will slow walk the policies of the executive branch from the president. That's what happened in the first term of President Trump. And that's not what's going to happen in the second term because he brought in new people. So sometimes an organization should hire from within. But when you're doing a major restructuring, guess what? The better way to do it is actually from an outsider. But she knows it all. Psaki knows it all.
Operations, which makes total sense. The last full-time deputy director, Paula Bate, had logged 25 years with the Bureau before being appointed to the position. Before him, Deputy Director David Bowditch had 23 years at the Bureau under his belt. Before him, Deputy Director Andrew McCabe had 20 years of experience. And before him, Deputy Director...
But isn't that what the problem with the deep state is? Do you have too many people so focused with that particular agency? And what happens is they get compromised and captured, or they know how to manipulate the system and slow walk policies from the president. It's obvious that the national security state, FBI, CIA, NSA, and all the other alphabet agencies are running amok. They're running rogue. They don't want their budgets to be cut. They don't want to be told that they need to restructure. And these are agencies that are used to fight a new crop of people coming into politics to actually try to make things better. You have the intelligence agencies going after Trump. That definitely happened during his first term. And they're running scared because they know that the activities that they were doing were illegal. And they don't want people that are new to come in to find the bodies, the dead bodies in the closet and all that, and hold these people accountable. If you bring on someone that is inculcated in the organization, they can weave around, they can prevent certain investigations to take place, or prevent certain, or slow walk certain investigations. Like, for example, these are the types of people that actually said, oh, the Hunter Biden laptop was some sort of Russian disinformation to help the Biden administration, to help Biden win the election. That's election interference. You had the deep state doing election interference. Forget about Dominion and miscounting of ballots. Just that very fact that the deep state, these inculcated 25-year plus individuals, literally lied to the American public and to Congress about the Hunter laptop, saying it was disinformation, Russian disinformation. So why should we elevate people that are incompetent? It's either incompetence or they were doing election interference. So why should we elevate these people that they're not beholden to we the people. They're not paying attention to the Constitution. They're using their power to influence elections, or they're incompetent. But either reason is grounds for not elevating them to leadership roles.
Mark Giuliano with 25 years of experience in the job. That's what he came in with. So between the previous 4 deputy directors, that's almost 100 years of experience at the FBI. I'm not a mathematician, but that's a lot of years. Now, Dan Bongino's resume, on the other hand, includes 2 years working for the New York Police Department, 12 years in the Secret Service, 3 unsuccessful runs as a Republican candidate for office, and about a decade as a far-right MAGA pundit.
My entire life right now is about owning the libs. That's it. The FBI is lost. It's broken. Irredeemably corrupt at this point. Jack Smith, of course, the special tyrant investigating Donald Trump for a fake crime he made up for a fake...
Exactly. So why should we elevate the deep state to run the FBI if they are constantly, especially with this President Trump, they're constantly slow walking, demonizing, or doing investigations to try to harm his presidency, or evidence comes out of the against the other party. The evidence comes out against the Democratic Party, and the FBI is constantly, trying to, put the lipstick on the pig, make it look pretty. Right? There's a reason why there's more FBI agents going on CNN than there are Fox News. You ever wonder about that? Or CIA, ex-CIAs? The FBI and the CIA needs to be completely dismantled.
Correction. The only thing that matters is what? Chad. What matters? Anyone? Power. Power. You can see what I'm about. Power.
Seems like a nice guy. Now, joining me now is NBC News Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Galanian and conservative attorney George Conway. Okay, Ken, let me just start a little bit with the history here, because I mentioned the deputy directors and the history of how many years experience they typically have. That's something it seemed that Kash Patel promised or said publicly he might continue. So what happened here?
At least according to the FBI Agents Association, they say that Patel committed to them, that he was hoping to and interested in hiring a career FBI agent, as has always been the case in this job. And when you think about it, that would make sense. He's an outsider. Yeah. He's a flame-throwing MAGA partisan outsider. You need somebody in there that knows how to make the trains run on time. This is an incredibly powerful job. Some people were telling me today they think the deputy job is more important.
Are the trains really running on time? Or is it that the agency is so big and powerful that it's trying to take down presidents and influencing elections and going after conservative people, like moms that don't want drag queens in their elementary schools for their kid? That's the FBI. Is that the trains that you want to keep running? What trains do you need to keep running? The agency is bloated. They get too much money. They have too many agents. And guess what? when there's a real problem, they don't investigate. They didn't investigate the Hunter laptop. They should have. They didn't want to do it because it was going against the Democrats. But if there's some false, some sort of fake dossier, they'll investigate that until the cows come home. No, you don't need the trains running on time. Because guess what? When the trains run on time, that's the way they'd circumvent the executive branch. The FBI needs to be destroyed.
Deputy actually supervises operations, is in charge of all the special agents, in charge of all the field officers across the country, has his hands on some of the most sensitive intelligence and counterintelligence operations in the United States. And this is now being handed to a guy with no experience in the FBI and a long experience trashing the FBI.
So what? Maybe that's what it needs.
The deputies and
maybe that's what it needs. Maybe we need someone to get into these agencies and say, you know what? Your agency sucks. You spend too much money. You don't get the job done. You fucking suck. They couldn't even do a proper investigation on the assassination attempt. They're still hiding from the JFK assassination. Shit.
The runs who run the day-to-day, thousands and tens of thousands of employees. They do a lot of the work. No offense to the people at the top. George, let me ask, today Trump's post announcing Bongino, he added to his resume that he's one, I'm just going to get this quote for you, you're going to love it, you probably saw it, one of the most successful podcasters in the country. What do you make of this pick?
Well, it's got nothing to do with actually running the FBI as a law enforcement agency. It has to do with owning the libs. I think Donald does a little bit of that with Donald Trump. He hates the FBI. The FBI investigated him for his various crimes, including the Mar-a-Lago stolen documents case, which was an open and shut case. But yet, Dan Bongino said that everybody associated with that case.
Wait a minute. He can declassify any document he wants because he's president of the United States. He can do that. It's not illegal what he did. But what about the raid, the FBI raid that was on Roger Stone? What about the FBI not looking into the Hunter laptop? What about the FBI pushing ahead this fake dossier with P-Gate? I mean, come on, man. If you got to be a dumbass or you really just like reality distortion, all right, to believe that the FBI wasn't going after Trump to prevent him from becoming president again. Amazing.
So it's really about revenge. It's about owning his enemies. And also
it's about
retribution.
it's about going into those agencies as president of the United States, getting the right people in there, restructuring it to the point where it's effective and accountable to we the people. It needs to be there. They need to do a major demolition. They need to demolish it and then rebuild, and that includes the CIA. Both of them are fucked up.
Does Donald Trump? It's just ingrained in him. He wants retribution against his enemies, and by picking two people who are completely loyal to him and who have spread his disinformation about January 6th and about Spygate even back in 2016. That's what Bongino got on the radar screen for, and COVID.
Wait a minute, there was Spygate going on. That's the whole fake dossier that came from the Clintons. I mean, he's not even. God, you're kidding me. It demonized Trump, demonized Trump. That's all he is.
I mean, all this stuff, it's just these are the two perfect people to run an FBI that's controlled by a president who's a criminal.
Let me ask you again. I mean, you were so well sourced.
He's a criminal because he was convicted by, a stacked jury in New York by a judge that wanted a conviction with directions to the jury that will be thrown out in appeals court, I mean. And it was about porn star payments. He's a convicted felon for paying a porn star as a legal expense. I mean, like, really, that's exactly what that's what he's saying. He's a convicted felon because he paid porn stars. He paid a porn star multiple payments as a legal expense through Cohen, his lawyer. And there seems to be an awful high probability that it would be appealed. And that conviction would be overturned in the appeals process.
Than the FBI. I assume, but you tell me, that after Kash Patel was nominated and confirmed, there was this hope that they'd have somebody who was one of their own, right? As the deputy, that who could run things and help maybe serve as a protective layer. What has the reaction been?
It's been shock and horror. Because
where's the protective layer on for we the people from the national security state? Where's the protective layer where we don't have the national security state using fake dossiers to try to overturn elections?
Look, as controversial as Kash Patel is, if you put a career agent in there as the deputy, then he can explain, no, sir, that's illegal. We can't do it that way. We have to follow the rules and the law. Now you have two bomb-throwing MAGA outsiders. And look, here are some of the things that Dan Bongino has said. Dan Bongino said that the FBI
It makes zero
lied
sense.
2 months ago when they said...
That makes zero sense because Patel is a lawyer. He knows what the law is and what he can do.
The suspect is that planted the bombs outside the RNC and the DNC the day before January 6th. They had this whole campaign seeking information from the public. Dan Bongino went on a podcast and said, oh, that's wrong. They know who did it. It's a conspiracy. Now he's going inside to run the place. And that's what I'm hearing today is just horrifying people.
Maybe the conspiracy theories are true. You ever think about that? Maybe the national security state is running amok for decades. These people are criminals that are running these agencies, and they're taking away your civil liberties. And not only that, they tried to overthrow a president. And there's probably high probability that they were involved in the JFK assassination.
Some of these people have been there for decades. Let me ask you, George, one of the questions I get asked a lot, I mean, just when you're in a train station, is like, what are the guardrails? What can be done to stop this? I mean, I think there are a lot of people who might be on a political enemies list, who might be targeted, just who are concerned about what they could do with their power. What are the legal guardrails here to stop the two of them from...
The legal guardrail ultimately would be the courts.
Where were the legal guardrails from an out-of-control national security state, especially post 9/11? Where was the guardrails, Jen? Why don't we push back a little bit and say maybe our national security state has been doing things wrong? Where's the guardrails? Where's the guardrails? We'll circle back to Jen Psaki right after this commercial. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and use Zeolite to detoxify your body. It removes heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals. Take 2 small drops underneath your tongue. Drink filtered water. Do that every day, and it will bind to the toxins and the chemicals, and it'll allow you to urinate that toxin or chemical out of your system in about 6 to 8 hours. Some people prefer to do a heavier detox once or twice a year. To do that, do 4 or 5 drops underneath your tongue. Drink the filtered water. Do that every day until the bottle is done, and do that once or twice a year. Very simple. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the Zeolite, detoxify your body on a regular basis, and what you're going to notice is that your immune system and your endocrine system will perform better. Make sure you drink filtered water, and make sure that you reduce your exposure to processed foods. Another great multi-purpose supplement that I have is olive leaf extract. This helps with your immune system and your cardiovascular health. Olive leaf extract will bring down inflammation and also bring down LDL levels and increase your HDL levels, so your total cholesterol is improved. So by bringing down inflammation and improving your total cholesterol, you're reducing plaque formation. By bringing down inflammation, you're also improving your immune system. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get this olive leaf extract, use discount 5 on any order, and you get $5 off. Get a bunch of supplements, stack them, and improve your health. But it's a holistic approach. It's not just about supplementation. It's about proper diet, exercise, sleep, learning new things, stretching, balancing exercises. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. All right, we're circling back to Jen.
Yeah.
Because if they want to bring punitive prosecutions against people, they still have to prove crimes beyond a reasonable doubt. But at the end of the day, in terms of just the mismanagement of the agency, when 38,000 people work for this agency and the 2 people at the top don't know anything about how it works, and they've lost a number of people at the top levels already. So it's just, I don't know what the remedy is other than
you can take someone that is not familiar with that organization, and as long as they have good managerial skills and through delegation, they can run that organization more smoothly than someone that was homegrown from that organization and moved up the ranks for years. Because what happens is, the key is that they have to have good organizational management, have good leadership skills and delegate authority. All right. But the thing is that also hold accountability. You can delegate, but also hold them accountable to their tasks. It's not that hard. This is not rocket science. But they want you to believe that you have to have a deep stater running the FBI, because the FBI is a major linchpin to be able to slow walk the executive branch's orders. And the other party, the Democratic Party, can use the FBI to try to go after their political enemies. The FBI was weaponized, for sure, by the Democratic Party.
we're stuck with them, and it's not great.
I would say one thing though, another guardrail are the people that work there that will follow the rules and the law. This is a rule-based organization. They're not going to just start investigating people without predication.
So based on rules that they hid the laptop and didn't want to investigate it, and that caused election interference in 2020. They didn't follow the law. Someone said, "Hey, there's a laptop with some, really bad stuff on it. You need to investigate it, and it's involving Hunter Biden." Oh, no. That's Russian disinformation. But they're such a law-abiding institution. If they're such a law-abiding institution, why were they weaponized against conservatives, especially families that didn't want these crazy transgender woke policies in primary school? Oh, they're a law-based organization.
Before they do that, and so we'll find out about it.
But the problem is, who are they going to hire to replace these people? Because these January 6ers.
This is a real possibility.
These January 6ers. These January 6ers. They're going to be the ones that are going to be the thing is, January 6th, what happened on that day, on that fateful day, all right, is a symptom of a really deep, worrisome disease. You have a national security state. You have a government that is not beholden to the people. We have representatives through elections representing we the people, but they get in based on our vote, but they are not listening to we the people. And so you have K Street and lobbying groups getting the attention of our representatives, and they're not listening to we the people. And so we're harmed. That means that our health is harmed and our economic well-being is harmed. And then you have a rogue national security state on top of that. So what happened on January 6th is a symptom of a disease. And that disease is that our elected officials are not following the Constitution and the will of the people. And they're paying attention to powerful groups, national security state, K Street, big money donors. That is the problem. It has nothing to do with January 6th. And so if this continues, the only end result to this is actually a revolution. But it's not going to be an American revolution. It's going to be more like the French Revolution, where the aristocracy is literally their heads chopped off.
The hardest working person covering this agency. Thank you, George. Thank you so much. We'll talk more about this, unfortunately, soon, I bet.
Yeah, unfortunately soon, because we can't get our deep staters in. This is Jen Psaki. God, I can't stand her. All right. Let's pivot over to France 24.
A conference breaking up with a final statement that says that the military has the monopoly of power.
Yes, exactly. Special workshops were held during all the day with around 600 people today. And the final statement stated that the National Army and maintaining serious unity, and emphasized maintaining serious unity and rejecting division, building a national army. And the most important thing is that today the new authorities will consider any armed formations outside the law. This is a major issue for Syrians, especially in cities outside of Damascus or in other cities, not just in Damascus, especially with the presence of criminals or with suspicious activities from other armed groups. So it's a very important point that insists on the seriousness of the new authorities and that the power they will have on all Syrian regions.
And already there's pushback from the Kurdish administration in the north.
Exactly. The Syrian Democratic Forces were not really invited to the conference today. It was not really a surprising decision because the spokesperson for the committee, Hassan al-Adgham, has already stated that the Syrian Democratic Forces or the People's Protection Units, which are the armed group of the wing of Kurdish coalition, do not represent the Kurdish component. The organizers as well told France 24 that each Syrian province has a share of representatives, but no armed group was invited. Of course, 35 political parties from the Kurdish-led autonomous administration believe that the conference does not accurately represent the real component of Syria. One important point to note in this context as well is that the interim President Ahmed al-Shara emphasized in his opening speech the state's monopoly on weapons.
Dana Albo's reporting live from Damascus. Many thanks for that update. Ahead of Keir Starmer's trip to Washington, the UK Prime Minister announcing a boost in defense spending from 2.5% of GDP to 3%. Starmer saying it will come at the expense of an aid budget that will be shaved. Britain's coffers are empty these days.
We must find courage in our history, courage in who we are as a nation, because courage is what our own era now demands of us. So starting today, I can announce this government will begin the biggest sustained increase in defence spending since the end of the Cold War. We will deliver our commitment to spend 2.5% of GDP on defence, but we will bring it forward so we reach that level in 2027.
Keir Starmer speaking ahead of a trip to Washington where he'll have his work cut out. What we saw Donald Trump on Monday rebuked by Emmanuel Macron. The pushback wasn't enough, though, over at UN headquarters in New York, where not once, but twice, the U.S. voted the same as Russia against European allies on motions concerning Ukraine. Matthew Mary Cabochet has the story.
The United States and its longtime European allies engaged in a showdown in the United Nations on Monday. In the General Assembly, Ukraine introduced a resolution demanding Russian withdrawal and for accountability for Russia's war crimes.
In favor, 93, against 18, abstention 65.
European nations largely supported the resolution, which was unsurprisingly rejected by Russia. In a diplomatic rift, the United States also voted no. Instead, the U.S. put forth its own resolution calling for peace, which did not condemn the invasion or even mention Russia at all. The General Assembly passed this measure as well, but only after European nations marked it up, calling out Russia as an invading aggressor. In the end, the U.S. abstained on its own resolution. Undeterred, the United States resubmitted its Russia-free resolution to the Security Council.
Our draft resolution is elegant in its simplicity, a symbolic, simple first step toward peace.
This time, the United States was victorious. Again, European nations tried to amend the resolution to call out Russia, but were foiled when Russia used its veto power to block their attempts. Rather than return the move and veto the resolution altogether, France and the United Kingdom stood down and abstained.
France calls for a global, just, and lasting peace, and certainly not for the capitulation of those facing aggression.
The United Nations has not seen such a consequential split between the United States and Europe since the war in Iraq, when countries like France and Germany loudly protested the American invasion.
And for more, we're joined by Robert Parsons, our Chief International Affairs Editor. Rob, you saw that clip at the end there of 2003. Of course, at the time, France voted against invading Iraq, but there were other European allies. There was a split among European allies of the United States. Here, it was virtually unanimous among the big players. And so this is a bigger rift in a way?
It is a bigger rift, but, it's difficult to know quite how much to read into it, because the last thing that the European members of the UN want at this moment is a split, formalized split with the United States.
Hence the abstention instead of...
Hence the abstentions, hence Emmanuel Macron's visit to Washington on Monday, hence Keir Starmer's visit on Thursday. They're trying to keep on board, they're trying to influence him from within, trying to keep close to him so that their views aren't brushed aside. And what we're hearing from the Americans is not complete outright rejection of the European position, but an attempt to try and persuade them that what they're doing isn't a contradiction of what they want, but it's really just a dose of reality. How do you get peace in Europe? For the last 3 years, there have been successive attempts to get resolutions, through the United Nations Security Council. Each one of them has failed because of Russia's veto. So how do you get a resolution that goes through the Security Council and which at the same time promotes peace? The answer, they say, is to do this.
The answer is to do this, and I presume that those that are employing that kind of language are the U.S. Secretary of State.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the U.S.'s ambassador to the United Nations answers to the State Department. But is he a player, Marco Rubio? When you saw that last week in Riyadh, he wasn't there at the negotiating table with Sergei Lavrov. He was there, rather, but there wasn't the sense that he was the main player in that conversation with Sergei Lavrov.
Yeah, I mean, really very difficult to judge on that, Francois. But all we know is that Marco Rubio perhaps represents a more traditional element in US diplomacy towards Russia and towards China. And that has been reflected to a degree in the statements he's made since the meeting in Riyadh, in which he has sought to reassure the Europeans, for instance, that they're not being excluded from this process, and has sought to reassure the European critics of that resolution in the United Nations that be patient. You know, this is just an attempt, pure and simple, to get peace in Europe. Ignoring the fact, of course, that this allows no discussion about the invasion of Ukraine, the abrogation of Ukrainian sovereignty, the torture of Ukrainian civilians in Bucha, Mariupol and elsewhere, the constant bombardment of Ukrainian civilian utilities over the course of 3 years, etc., etc., etc. Questions which I suppose Donald Trump and those around him would say, that's not what we want to talk about first. Let's just get peace discussed first.
And we're now at sort of, I guess you could say, the midway point of a Ukraine week in Washington.
Yeah.
We had Emmanuel Macron on Monday. We're going to have Keir Starmer on Thursday. Starmer, who's clearly, as you say, trying to onboard Donald Trump by making this announcement of speeding up an increase in defense spending. Reviews are in. How do you think it's going at halftime of this European charm offensive?
Your guess is as good as mine, I think, or anybody else's, for that matter, on this. When you're dealing with Donald Trump, always referred to as mercurial, because he'll say one thing to you one day and something completely different the next. It's very difficult to judge where he is, except if you're talking about the general direction that he's moving in, and from the point of view of the Europeans and the point of view of Ukraine, clearly it's a very negative one.
It's on its editorial pages, the Daily Telegraph, calling Macron a bit of a poodle.
Well, I think the verdict is out on what Emmanuel Macron achieved. It was a pretty fine line he had to walk, and he tried to be critical where he could be of what Donald Trump was saying, coming back on him on the issue of whether the European Union was giving loans or grants to Ukraine, for instance. But he knows he can't afford to antagonize Trump. He has to try and keep on board with him at the same time as nudging him in the direction he wants him to move. The verdict is out, but I do think that Macron achieved something, that it wasn't negative, the meeting he had with Trump, that it was the mood was positive, and there's something there for Keir Starmer to build on. I don't think Starmer has quite that same relationship with Trump that Macron has. He's a bit more wooden in his relations. I think to try and get a rapport between Trump and Starmer will be a little bit difficult, too far apart as personalities. But at the same time as that, he's coming from the fact that the UK, like France, has a long history of close relations with the United States as allies. He's got that to build on. He's got the possible invitation to come and meet the king. Trump adores 2029.
All right, we'll see how it plays out. Many thanks,
All right.
Robert Harris.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the natto kinase. It's the-studio-reykjavik.com. Natto kinase is fibrinolytic, so it's going to break up clots, but it also helps bring down LDL levels and increase your HDL levels, so it's going to improve your total cholesterol. Very important to help with your cardiovascular health. And you can stack it with K2 and D3 to enhance that cardiovascular health. D3 and K2 mixed together will help to prevent the buildup of the calcium around plaque. If you follow my cardiovascular protocol, the longevity cardiovascular box, you can actually shrink plaque that has formed over time if you follow that protocol through for a year. But to reduce plaque formation, take the D3, the K2, and it works great with the natto kinase. Also, D3 and K2, when you take calcium supplements or drink milk and do resistance training, you are helping to build up more bone density. So D3 and K2 has a dual purpose stack. helps with your cardiovascular health, but also your bone health. And nattokinase is a great stack to enhance the cardiovascular health. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the K2, the D3, and the nattokinase. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off. All right, I want to go to Bloomberg here.
We'll bring in Bloomberg Intelligence Senior Policy Analyst Nathan Dean coming up next.
All right, they shifted over. So let's go to MSNBC. I found another video about the Carville comment.
Mentioned Democratic strategist James Carville. He's out with a bold prediction, saying that the Trump administration and Republican lawmakers will suffer a massive collapse in 30 days. Let's take a look.
What I've said very publicly, the Democrats need to play possum. This whole thing is collapsing. It doesn't need Elizabeth Warren and somebody screaming to pacify some progressive advocacy groups in Washington, which, by the way, I wish these people were just useless. They're actually worse than useless, that they're detrimental. And they never, ever learn to shut up. And so, Dan, this is what I believe. I believe that this administration, in less than 30 days, in the midst of a massive collapse, and particularly a collapse in public opinion, it's going to be easy pickings here in 6 weeks. Just lay back.
So you literally think 30 days to 6 weeks, the Trump administration is effectively going to collapse in terms of public support?
Well, it's collapsing right now. We're in the midst of a collapse. This is the lowest approval, not even close, that any president has ever had at a comparable time. Again, that's the approvable fact. So they're not going to be able to get a debt extension. That's pretty clear. I don't think they're going to be able to pass reconciliation, but I'm not sure. But they're going to have to go to Hakeem. And that is going to be the equivalent of stacking arms. It's over.
He also said that Harris was going to win, and that didn't happen. I think that Carville is literally losing his mind.
That is certainly
pronouncement.
That's only one view of it. Again, going back to White World News, Alpern also quotes from Heather Cox Richardson's newsletter, her quote of Timothy Snyder, who's a scholar on authoritarianism, who said, "Something is shifting. They are still breaking things and stealing things, and they will keep trying to break and steal, but the propaganda magic around the oligarchical coup is fading. Nervous Musk, nervous Trump." And the point is, not that necessarily everything's going to be over.
I swear, watching MSNBC, you're literally watching state news coming out of North Korea.
Collapse in 30 days. But Democrats, for the first time since Election Day, and this is what Halpern's Wide World of News is saying, for the first time since Election Day, Democrats are starting to see an opening. And with that opening, a lot of questions make about who will lead this party.
Right, joining us now, co-founder, CEO of Axios, Jim Vandehei, and journalist, editor, and author of the newsletter Fresh Hell, available on Substack, Tina Brown. I love it.
Still my favorite topic for a newsletter.
The BBC's Katty Kay is still with us as well. She's the host of the Rest is Politics podcast, which is amazing as well.
Yeah. So, Jim Vandehei, you've actually written about, Axios has actually written about this, which is there's sort of different camps that we have right now for leaders who want to take charge of the Democratic Party and lead the fight against Republicans and Donald Trump. Talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Carville's spot on in his analysis. Like, he's got to look at where the Democratic Party is right now, right? We have also had polls showing Democrats have never been, as a party, more unpopular than they are at this moment. On top of that, they don't have much power, right? If you don't control the Senate, you don't control the House, you don't control the White House, you don't control the courts. There's only so many levers that you can actually pull.
So the debate inside the party is, do you accept that some of the things that Donald Trump wants to do directionally might be correct? And I put sort of Governor Whitmer or Governor Paulus in Colorado in that camp, saying, listen, maybe they're with them on tariffs or part of tariffs. Maybe they're with them on the border and conceding that things need to be done and that every day doesn't need to be a fight. That's one camp. I think the others here, Chris Murphy is a senator from Connecticut, or J.D. Pritzker in Illinois, people who are from very liberal states where they have the freedom to be in sort of the warfare mindset, day in, day out, hour in, hour out. And I think that is the big fight. I think we know the way politics works is Trump's going to live or die based on his performance. So tell me what inflation looks like in a month. Tell me what the jobless rate looks like. Tell me where wages are. And tell me how much chaos flows from some of the decisions of the first 30 days. And I'll tell you kind of where his public standing is and whether or not Republicans will break. But so far, there's zero sign. You saw it. You had it this morning. The idea that no Republican will speak up and say, hey, maybe Vladimir Putin's a thug. Maybe he's a dictator. Maybe he's been hell-bent for his entire life, starting at the KGB to destroy your nation. Maybe Zelensky, you can argue whether or not we should be there or not there. You can't argue like, oh, he started the war when someone invaded me. And yet you don't have a single Republican who says,
I can't even handle MSNBC anymore. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the NEC. I've added this to my stack to boost on my glutathione levels, but also to detoxify my liver and kidney. And NAC helps to calm down the nervous system. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the NAC. Also, if you're older, 40 years of age or older, you should be taking vitamin B complex. Why? Because the first 4 B vitamins helps with the mitochondrial health to produce ATP through the electron transport chain, but also this will help with cellular metabolism and improve the health of your neurons, to protect your neurons. That's really important when you get older. Please take the vitamin B complex every day and protect your neurons and boost up your cellular metabolism. Also, when you get older, 40 years of age or older, or if you're an athlete, young or old athlete, take digestive enzyme complex to reduce the load on your pancreas. It helps to break up carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. If you're an athlete, young or older, take this and it'll help to break up your pre or post-workout fueling, and that way you're absorbing your energy and recovering quicker. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Take the digestive enzyme complex, really important to take to reduce the load on your pancreas and to help with the digestion. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off. All right, let's go back to Bloomberg.
With capital regulations over the next year is you're going to hit pause. The regulators are going to try and figure it out. Maybe Jerome Powell does something at the Fed, maybe he doesn't. DOGE is obviously playing a very important picture here. But I think for the long term, I think you're going to see more of a capital neutral policy emerging from the bank regulators over the next few years.
Okay, now I'm quoting Ray Parker Jr. Because your phone is ringing and you are the guy to call. What are clients who have terminals and who are investing on this information asking you about this right now?
Well, obviously, crypto is a big piece because of the cryptocurrency news. Sure. I mean, we saw that Bitcoin has gone down, Trump coin, Melania coin a lot.
Are they even asking you about Basel anymore? I mean, this conversation has changed a lot.
Not so much. I mean, the bank regulators, and I think a lot of bank investors have sentiment that deregulation is coming, but they understand now that deregulation is not a magic wand. It's going to take a long time. And so I think from what our clients are talking about is, what are the actionable things that are coming out over the next few weeks and months? Obviously, tariffs. President Trump just reiterated today that Canada and Mexico tariffs are coming next week. Yeah. Reciprocal tariffs could come even later. The State of the Union. I mean, there's a lot of things that are coming up. But I think in terms of this week, it's the House reconciliation bill. Will that pass tonight? Will it not?
Will there even be a vote?
Will there even be a vote? And then this idea of tariffs and then crypto. Those are the three things I think our clients are really talking about.
Let's tick through them. Do you think a vote is coming, or does Mike Johnson have more herding of cats to do?
I think there's more herding of cats. I don't think a vote's going to happen tonight. Could be wrong, but Speaker Johnson can only afford to lose one, and there's no deadline here. I mean, that's the thing, is that he can push this deadline back and there's no penalty. So what does Washington often do when they do in these situations? They kick the can and they push it down. Now, obviously the Senate's going to be sitting there. Senator Thun's going to say, look, if you can't get your act together, we have plan B or plan A, depending who you talk to in terms of reconciliation. What we're telling our clients is that this vote is more of just, this vote is just a vote to kick off the process.
You're right.
This isn't the vote that actually has Medicaid cuts, SNAP cuts, tax changes.
So if it's this hard already, that should really encourage them.
Exactly, which goes to our theory that, we do think tax changes and we do think a reconciliation bill with a multi-trillion-dollar price tag with economic benefits and so forth will pass this year, but we've always said it's going to be in the latter half of the year, potentially even the fourth quarter. So nothing has to happen this week, so don't be surprised if they kick the can. Now, I also think that Speaker Johnson could eventually get a budget resolution through, but it just may not be this one.
Got it. There is a deadline coming, and that's a funding deadline, middle of next month. When do you start running odds on a shutdown, or are you already there?
So we're going to have our odds out next week. Right now there's a lot of rhetoric, and the rhetoric will increase as we get to March 14th. That's anticipated. Yeah. Now the question here is DOGE, because the Democrats obviously are not thrilled with what's happening with the DOGE committee. And my question though is, how are they going to respond to this in terms of a shutdown? Now, I don't think they can get to a top line number. I think there's going to be a short-term CR that comes out of this. But my question is, how much fight are the Democrats going to put up on this? Because if the Republicans come back and say, here's a clean bill, can the Democrats come back and say, we're going to block this because of DOGE? I'm not exactly sure yet. We're going to be having a lot of internal discussions this week, and we'll have our odds out for you next week.
Yeah, but I can't wait. That says something, by the way, when you get to the point. That's like when a champagne house decides to declare a vintage. When you guys say we're running a countdown clock, that means it's kind of getting real, right? There are so-called shutdown threats you don't do odds on.
Well, I mean,
FBI.
This is a serious opportunity here for a shutdown. And
that's what I mean, though. That's
absolutely
different than the last couple of times.
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever, sometimes we've had this conversation where I say, hey, don't worry about it. It's not gonna happen, or we really don't care. This is different because we do think that there is going to be a significant shutdown sometime in 2025. I'm just not sure this is the one.
A significant shutdown. Well, you've got the debt ceiling in mind.
We have the debt ceiling coming, and we have political parties that are already thinking about 2026. Huh. And when political parties go into shutdowns thinking that they're the ones that are politically advantageous to their positions, that's when you get a shutdown.
What's significant? Weeks?
I think, President Trump had the 31-day shutdown.
Yeah, that was significant.
I had a client ask me this morning, are we going to get a 2-month shutdown? So I guess that's one of the big questions.
Trump would want a record breaking, right? If we're going to do it, we're going to set a record. It's very Trump.
When it comes to shutdowns in particular, it's always the American people putting pressure on politicians to come to an agreement. Yeah. Whether it's children trying to go to the zoo here in D.C. or national monuments. You may recall a couple of years ago, World War II vets stormed the memorial and broke down the barrier. They're the ones that put pressure on Washington to end the shutdown. It's just, where does that pressure go? Does it go to the Democrats or to the Republicans? And we're still trying to figure that out.
Okay, fascinating. You mentioned crypto. What's going on here? Bitcoin falling out of bed, 86,000, and don't even mention, you mentioned some of the meme coins. That's a disaster area depending on the coin you're looking at. What are the influences here when it's risk on, risk off? Is this a hedge or not?
So there's really two aspects to this. You have to separate Bitcoin and then the meme coins.
Fair. Bitcoin.
When it comes to Bitcoin, we saw the price go from 100,000 down to around 86. I think Charlie just said. Yep. A lot of this is driven by the macroeconomic environment. We're seeing a lot of, in our earnings calls across Bloomberg Intelligence, a lot of our analysts are reporting back that things aren't looking so rosy in the economic front. And Bitcoin could be another example of that. The tariff policy in particular, whether that increases costs or leads to dramatic job cuts in certain industries, the question here, though, is Bitcoin has always been seen as a risk-saving or at least a risk-aversion asset.
Right. So isn't this the time to buy it? If you're worried about the dollar, if you're worried about the direction of the economy, if you're worried about tariffs, wouldn't you buy Bitcoin?
But that's the thing, is that a lot of this is driven by the global economic order. Bitcoin is not a U.S.-specific coin. It's a global coin. And so I think there's a lot of uncertainty and people just don't know. I mean, Bitcoin's only been around for a couple of years. It doesn't have 50, 70, 100 years of trading like gold does. And so I think a lot of Bitcoin investors who are also mostly retail in nature are still trying to figure out how does this work. And, we're just going to have to see how it plays out over the next few weeks.
This is fascinating to me. I'm looking at Melania coin. This would be the opposite of Bitcoin. Now we're into the meme coins. Some would call them other things. I think Patrick McHenry suggested there might be a name you can't use on the air. They're S coins. This thing topped out at like $9. It is worth 94 cents right now, down 88%. What's going on there? Are we giving up on this idea?
Well, meme coins are meme coins. They're speculative.
Yeah, meme coins should be illegal, honestly. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the ubiquinol. This is the most bioavailable form of CoQ10 that you can buy. Also, ubiquinol soaks up free radicals. It helps to boost up your mitochondrial health, so you're going to have more ATP. And ubiquinol helps to protect your neurons. Very important to take after you reach age 40. So if you need to take ubiquinol or take CoQ10, you want to take ubiquinol because it's the most bioavailable form of CoQ10. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the ubiquinol, stack it with NAD+, resveratrol C60. Let's talk about NAD+. I've added this to my stack. Why? To boost up my energy levels. NAD+ also helps to repair DNA damage, cellular and mitochondrial DNA. And NAD+ helps to protect neurons. So please, if you're older, you need to repair your DNA damage, boost up your energy levels, and protect your neurons. Again, NAD+ stacks well with ubiquinol and resveratrol and C60. Now with resveratrol, it's an antioxidant, so it's going to soak up free radicals. It's going to help with the mitochondrial health. It's going to boost up your ATP levels because it's improving the mitochondrial health. But not just that, it helps to get rid of cells that are in senescence. So get rid of those senescent cells, get rid of the garbage, and for tissues that can repopulate, using resveratrol, you're going to get rid of those cells that collect that garbage, right, in the cell. And you're getting rid of them, and that stem cells in that basal layer are going to be regenerating, creating new cells, and then the tissue average age is going to actually go down. So that's how it works. But I've been taking resveratrol for decades, but it stacks really well. You get the max benefit of resveratrol when you stack it with C60 or NAD+ or ubiquinol. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5 for $5 off. All right. I want to go to the Hill in talking about Mayor Adams.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams had a major announcement yesterday about the migrant crisis. Here he is.
Today, we are announcing the Roosevelt Hotel, which served as both our asylum arrival center and the humanitarian emergency response and relief center for nearly 2 years, will be closing in the coming months. The Roosevelt Hotel has been key in allowing us to effectively manage our operation, processing almost 75% of individuals that have come into our care through these doors. Now, thanks to the sound policy decisions of our team, we're able to announce the closure of this site and help even more asylum seekers take the next steps in their journeys while simultaneously saving taxpayers millions of dollars. With this closure, we're closing 53 sites within a span of a year.
Adams had met with Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, earlier this month. The two agreed to reestablish an immigration office at Rikers Island, notorious jail in New York City.
Hogan said the two had agreed on other things, but were keeping those private for now. Here are the two in an awkward appearance on Fox and Friends earlier this month.
If he doesn't come through, I'll be back in New York City, and we won't be sitting on the couch. I'll be in his office, up his butt, saying, "Where the hell is the agreement we came to?" So
I want ICE to deliver, and I want ICE to deliver. We're going to deliver for the safety of the people of this city. Let's focus on every American in New York should have the right to have an opportunity and survive in this city.
We're going to hold you to that. 6 top prosecutors resigned this month after Trump's DOJ decided to drop the corruption charges against Adams. One of those prosecutors, Danielle Sassoon, said she couldn't ask a judge in good faith to drop the case. She felt the evidence against Adams was strong, and she alleged that Adams' attorneys had urged for what was essentially a quid pro quo, a de facto pardon in return for his help with the migrant crisis.
Adams' lawyer called the quid pro quo allegation a total lie. And I've been a little bit, more than a little bit, skeptical of releasing Adams from these corruption charges. I mean, I would say he should both address crime and migrant issues in the city, not because he needs to do that in order to get Republicans off his back to avoid the corruption charges, but he should just be doing that because that is his elected official role, is to make New York City a safe and prosperous place. So I don't know why we're putting our faith or trust in a guy who's like, oh, now he's willing to do these immigration things you want done because you're literally threatening him with potential jail if he doesn't do it. That seems kind of exactly what Hammond was referring to there. Also, I don't know, so I'm just not understanding, maybe you understand better, what is accomplished by shutting down this the Roosevelt Hotel as a migrant center? So then what is going to be done with those migrants?
So the argument is that the actual flow of migrants to New York City has become a small fraction of what it once was, and therefore you can process them elsewhere and save the money.
So this is a sign that we have made some strides.
Yeah, but to your larger point, I think that there is this cloud of suspicion over Eric Adams, not just in relation to those charges, but in relation to the nature of the deal that was made with the Trump DOJ. That's why there was some talk of removing him. Governor Kathy Hochul was kind of publicly mulling that. She correctly, in my view, decided not to do that because it was just played into Adams' hands that he was being martyred or the victim of politicization or something of that nature.
I agree.
But the problem is that because there is this perception that the Trump administration holds this very powerful card over him, then anytime he makes any kind of move on immigration, there's always that doubt in people's minds. Are you doing this, to your point, because it's the right thing, because you legitimately believe it, or are you doing it to fulfill your side of an effective pardon?
Yeah, this just doesn't seem to be the kind of ruthless politics that Trump and Republicans have becoming more known for. Why not let a corrupt Democrat flail and bring more embarrassment to himself in hopes of, Republican political pickups in New York, I guess is what I would suggest.
I guess it's the idea is that he's a sort of useful token Democrat supporting Trump's immigration policies or immigration stance. I think
right now.
Yeah, for the moment.
For the moment.
Yeah, we'll say.
Well, in other news,
Listen, paying $14.99 a month for a streaming app, and $9.99 a month for a music app, and $12.99 for a fitness app, and more money for a bunch of other apps?
Well, in other news, one of Adams' potential mayoral opponents just got an endorsement. Take a listen.
For me, the two most important virtues in politics are competence and courage. And Andrew Cuomo has the competence to run
he's
New York
aligned.
City.
See, the Democratic Party is putting their chips with Cuomo to reboot his political career.
And he has the courage to stand up to the extremes of American politics, whether it's the far right or the far left. And so when it comes to confronting political extremism in New York, when it comes to confronting the crisis of crime, we need not a nice guy, but a tough guy like Andrew Cuomo.
Reporter at Reason Magazine, Billy Binion, wrote on X, Andrew Cuomo sent a bunch of old people to their deaths during COVID, and his administration altered official government data to hide that from the public, all while he told the media that people value the truth. Are people just going to forget that? This isn't a feel-good comeback story.
Fox Business correspondent Charles Gasparino wrote on X, Torres is looking to run for Gov, of course, governor of New York, and Cuomo for mayor of New York City. The city needs a whole lot of fixing. The way the laws are written, the mayor needs Albany to get stuff done. The mayor can't impose taxes or cut them, and a lot more without legislative and gubernatorial approval. Their alliance would make running New York City so much easier if Cuomo does run and win for several reasons, including Cuomo made a lot of enemies when he was governor, and he and Kathy Hochul despise each other. Just before we get into the meat of this discussion, Robbie, it struck me that there are some people who listen to us on podcasts rather than look at our lovely faces, and we didn't explain it was Richie Torres, the congressman who represents the Bronx, who has endorsed Andrew.
Yes, making that endorsement. And Richie Torres is a very interesting political figure, a sort of right-leaning Dem, or at least very right-leaning on Israel and foreign policy, which is what's brought him to attention sort of in a John Fetterman sense. And I think he has some of a Fetterman inclination to criticize Dem leadership or where the Democratic Party is, and has a interest, I suppose, in running for governor, is what it sounds like. Cuomo, is a figure who has been attacked on this show for years and years and years for his COVID policies, for covering up his role in the nursing home scandal, and was forced to resign in disgrace, actually over sexual misconduct allegations that, in my view, as I said at the time, were paled in comparison to the allegations of concealing data about his COVID-related stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So could he make a comeback? Richie Torres is someone who criticized him over this long ago, but it's I guess it's an alliance underfoot. It's sort of a Game of Thrones I'm allying with these people to fight these people sort of situation. What am I to make of this, Niall?
Well, I think you're to make of it that Cuomo is obviously trying to position himself as a very, very centrist candidate. You mentioned Richie Torres and the pro-Israel position, which is very pronounced, by any standard. Richie Torres got about $500,000 the last election cycle from AIPAC. Progressives dislike him intensely, partly for that reason and partly because of a more general perceived centrism. In relation to Cuomo, I guess the idea is that he's been sort of billed as this is the person who can get the city working again. That was the Gasparino quote. To the point about COVID, for people who are not as familiar as you are with that controversy, basically, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Andrew Cuomo, while governor, issued this order that nursing homes had to take in people who had been let out of the hospital for COVID. And then lots of people died in those nursing homes, and the Cuomo administration essentially concealed how many
Yes,
people died.
and that's the real, what I thought would have been the criminal part of it, because you can make claims about this was the federal guidance. It was not only done in New York, it was done in Michigan. Tim Walz actually defended having done the same policy in Minnesota. So he did kind of have an out for himself there, saying, well, this was federal policy, but he wanted that book about how good his response to COVID was. And the numbers of people who had died in nursing homes for the policy was inconvenient for his narrative about how good a job he did. And he ordered aides, people helping him write the book, to ignore that information, to conceal that information. That was the really, really bad part.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And obviously, if he does run, and there's some speculation that he could declare his candidacy as early as next month, obviously that is going to be relitigated in a big way, as are the allegations of sexual misconduct. Now, to summarize a very complicated story there, 11 women came forward and made some kind of complaint. Cuomo vehemently protested his innocence, although he made some vague apology for making people feel uncomfortable or for in any sense that they felt he had acted inappropriately. But there was only one charge ever brought, which was dropped before it came to trial. So that one is complicated, I would say.
Yeah, I cannot stand him. I cannot stand Eric Adams, and it'll be an interesting mayoral race.
So it doesn't sound like we're doing a remote rising from New York.
I pity the city that has to pick between the two of them. Next up, how one lawmaker is throwing shade at the president and the president's voter.
All righty. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the C60. You can get it in MCT coconut oil, avocado oil, or extra virgin olive oil. You can get it in a 2-ounce, a 4-ounce, or an 8-ounce configuration. C60 soaks up free radicals. It's a very effective way to soak up free radicals. So almost 1,000 times more potent than vitamin C. Now, the way that molecule works is it's 60 carbons looking sort of like a soccer ball. It's a fullerene or a buckyball. There's different terms for it. And it'll be able to neutralize those free radicals. Now, by neutralizing free radicals in your serum, in your blood, or in your cells, you're going to reduce stress, all right? If you reduce free radicals in your bloodstream, then what you're doing is you're reducing the chances of LDL oxidizing. And so you're reducing plaque formation. In addition, by reducing the stress in the cell and soaking up those free radicals, you're also improving the mitochondrial health. So you're boosting up energy levels. You're going to have more ATP. So your cells are going to perform better. Your mitochondrial health will be more robust, especially in neurons. So your thinking will be more, will be improved. The neurotransmitters will be produced in these neurons, and it'll be able to shoot out those neurotransmitters. Well, that means you're going to have positive neuroplasticity because your neurons are healthier. So you're going to your memory is going to be clearer. You're going to think better. So in addition, by bringing down these free radicals in your different cells, your tissues will perform better, and then your organ systems will perform better. That means that your immune system is going to be better. You're going to have better endocrine system, and your other bodily systems are going to perform better. So it's really important to take a very effective dosage. I think I think there's a problem with the screen here. Unfortunately, the screen froze. My camera froze, so I don't know if you can still see me or not. Okay, looks like the camera's still working, but the screen that is actually doing the camera is frozen, so I'm going to continue on. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the C60. You can get it in MCT coconut oil, avocado oil, or extra virgin olive oil. Get it in a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration. And by doing that, you're going to be able to soak up those free radicals. You can get it again in 3 different versions: the MCT coconut oil, the avocado oil, and the extra virgin olive oil. Hopefully this was recorded. I don't know, but make sure you use discount 5 and you can get $5 off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to